Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if the Sage of Six Paths sent Naruto to change the past, to change the future. Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Fourth Shinobi World War. One Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki was about to die. He knew it because his tenant, Kurama, was ripped out of him and was added to the Jito statue. It was just moments before the 10 Tails Jaiubi would be released, laying destruction on the 5 great elemental nations. Naruto's dad Minato Namikaze did manage to transport the yin half of Kurama, which he had sealed into himself 17 years ago, into Naruto. But even he knew that all the odds were stacked up against him and his son. Inside the mind of Naruto, the images of all the people whom he considered as precious to him and who were lying dead on the battlefield were flashing past. Neji was the first person to die, giving his life to protect Naruto from a tailed beast ball from the 5 tails, which was under the control of Madara Uchiha. The next to die was Rock Lee and Mitogai Sensei. They were fighting Madara and opened all of their 8 gates, but in vain, and only for them to die instead. Then in line were Chaoji and Sai. Chaoji had died after taking the last pill, the red chili pill, as a last resort to take out as many Zetsu clones as possible. Sai was assisting Chaoji, though eventually, after his teammates' fall, he also fell. Ino and Sakura had died due to severe chakra exhaustion due to trying to heal their comrades. Tenten had taken down at least 20 clones along with her when she used a different type of exploding tag, sacrificing herself to buy some time for the others. Kiba and Akamaru did the same with themselves. Shino had used himself as a decoy and was killed. Kakashi Sensei had died fighting against Obito. Shikamaru had died fighting alongside him. He was one of his best friends, yet he could not save him. But the worst that hit Naruto was the death of Hinata. His Hinata, the shy girl from academy who had always fainted when he talked to her. The same girl who fearlessly came to his rescue when he was pinned down during Pain's invasion and confessed her love for him and died only to be revived. The girl who never stopped believing in him even though he himself did not believe in himself sometimes. She had died trying to come to his rescue again only to be killed by Obito Uchiha. Only Sasuke Uchiha was still alive, though even he was on his deathbed. He had changed at the last moment, aiding the allied shinobi force. But all of those didn't matter now since he himself was about to die and soon he would join them in the afterlife. After some time, he opened his eyes, hoping to find himself in some great place as his afterlife. But what he found was not what he had expected. He found an old man sitting on some kind of stage holding a staff in his hand and was looking at him. He also found that all of the tailed beasts were there watching him, including Kurama. Seeing Kurama made him happy because he had thought that Kurama was also pulled into the statue, which confused him though. "Hey Kurama," said Naruto looking at the 9-tailed fox with a grin on his face, "why are you not in that strange statue? Where are we? And how are you?" Hearing this, Kurama face-palmed and shouted, "Shut up kid. You are embarrassing me in front of the great Sage of Six Paths." "So this is the Sage of Six Paths you were talking about," said he and turned towards the sage. "Hey old man. How are you?" All the tailed beasts' sweat dropped. "I see that you are the reincarnation of Ashura, my son," said the sage with a light chuckle. "So, where are we old man?" asked Naruto. "We are in a place deep inside Uchiha accessible only to you, Kurama and the other tailed beasts. Not even the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan can penetrate," said the sage. "So why are we here?" said Naruto, not making heads or tails about the explanation. "Before I answer your question, I have some of my own to ask you. Will you answer them sincerely?" asked the sage. "Shoot," said Naruto. "Very well, but before I ask you my questions, I will tell you the history of the shinobi world. Listen to it carefully." Saying this, the sage began to explain the past to Naruto, while Naruto listened carefully. He told him about Kagaya and the Jaiubi, the tailed beasts and everything. He told him about his sons Indra and Ashura, their powers and nature. He also told him about the curse of hatred. Finally he spoke, "Naruto, do you understand everything?" Apart from the stuck-up attitude of this Indra guy, "Yeah, I understand pretty much everything," said Naruto. "Well then, I will ask you my questions," said the sage. "What would you do if I gave you powers of the Jinchuriki of Jaiubi?" "I will make sure that none of my friends died in vain and make sure that both Obito and Madara die," said Naruto with confidence, determination, sadness and rage in his clear blue eyes. "Very well, I will give you my chakra, use it well," said the sage, and turning towards Kurama, said Kurama, "Guide the boy and help him succeed. All of you help him in succeeding," and then threw the staff he was holding towards Naruto. He caught it and felt immense amount of chakra flow through his body. When Naruto was about to exit from the place, Kurama called out to him and said, "Naruto, fist bump with the rest of us to gain some of each of our powers as well." Naruto did as he was told to and gained a portion of chakra from each tailed beast. When he was about to leave, something crossed his mind. Turning towards the sage, he asked, "Hey old man, is there a way to start all over and prevent all of these?" The sage smiled at this and said, "There is a way. A time travel jutsu that allows you to travel back in time with your memories and powers intact, but you will be back in your younger body." "Why do you ask?" Naruto flashed a foxy grin and said, "Because I am going back to the past and I will change the future." The sage knew this was coming and so he said, "I knew you would say that, boy. Alright, I'll use the rest of my chakra to perform the jutsu. Get strong in the past and learn to use my chakra. Now that it is merged with yours, it will not run out as long as you live. Kurama, guide the boy. All of you help him. You will be sent back to your 8-year-old body just after the Uchiha massacre. All the best, Naruto." Saying this, he performed the necessary hand seals and suddenly there was a blinding light and the next moment the place was empty. Naruto's apartment room, 9 years to the past. Naruto woke up from his sleep with a flood of memories from the future. He had a lot to work on to change the future. Elsewhere, 8 other tailed beasts and their Jinchurikis were flooded with memories from the future. And a blonde boy by the name of Naruto Namikaze Naruto was responsible for it. Flashback. Naruto's apartment room, 9 years to the past. Naruto woke up from his sleep with a flood of memories from the future. He had a lot to work on to change the future. Elsewhere, 8 other tailed beasts and their Jinchurikis were flooded with memories from the future. And a blonde boy by the name of Naruto Namikaze Naruto was responsible for it. Naruto woke up in his apartment in his 8-year-old body. His mind fresh with the memories from the future. His memories of his precious people. Those who had given their lives for him and the village. He had a chance to save all of them and he definitely would save them this time, he promised himself. There was only one problem, his body reacted to his commands very strangely. When he tried to get out of his bed by jumping, he had almost jumped through the roof of the building if it wasn't there. He really had a lot of work to do. It was still 3 in the morning, at least that was what the clock displayed. So he had a lot of time to get used to the body. So, instead of getting up then and there, he began exercising by trying to use his fingers, then hands until he knew that he had complete control over them. Next, he focused on his legs, moving them and get used to how much energy he had to use to move them. Finally, in about half an hour, he had full control of his body. It was way earlier than he had expected. So, since he couldn't go back to sleep, he thought that it would be best to make up some plans for training. Thinking about that, he got up to freshen up only to get a shock. He accidentally happened to notice the calendar that was hung on his apartment's wall. Instead of being 8 years into the past, he was back 9 years. That was enough to give him shock, good enough to rid him of all of the sleep he would have had missed. He sat down in an all-so-familiar lotus style and started meditating to enter his inner subconscious or mindscape. But what he met with was one very calmly sleeping Kurama, the Kyuubi no Kitsune, the 9-tailed fox. And also, instead of the seal with a kanji for seal written on the great bars for the fox's cage, there was nothing. It was open, the gate was unlocked. Kurama, sensing someone had entered his kit's mindscape, opened his eyes only to see his own kid had entered, apparently to ask questions. "What is it, Naruto?" "I am trying to sleep here," spoke Kurama. Weren't we supposed to go 8 years back in time and not 9? Replied Naruto. "Yes, you are right. But during the process, some of all of our chakras got merged with the great sage, which led us to go back not 8, but 9 years into the past. On the bright side, kid, we have more time to train your so-called body," snickered Kurama. "Hey, it's not my fault that everyone refuses to sell good stuff to me. The only people who are both nice to me and sell food to me are Old Man Tuechi and Nai-san," shouted out the blonde. "Well then, ask that old man Hokage to get you some good and healthy stuff to eat. Ask him because he won't refuse," told Kurama. "Wait a minute, why hadn't I thought about it before?" asked Naruto, giving his sheepish smile and ruffling his hair. "Because you were and will be an idiot, kid. And that is what makes you, told Kurama. "I guess you are right. Okay, got to go and meet the old man." Saying this, Naruto left his mindscape. When Naruto opened his eyes, he saw that it was already 7:30 in the morning. He had an academy to go to. So, he thought that he really had to start controlling time in his mindscape. He got ready and after making sure his apartment was safe in every way, he rushed towards the academy when something hit his thoughts. He hadn't been enrolled into the academy as of yet. So, running to the academy would be awkward. Then he remembered something. He had protected Hinata from some bullies before she enrolled to the academy. That was still 2 years ahead. So, he thought to himself, if he could somehow persuade the old man to let him join 2 years later at the same time as his classmates, comrades from the future or past or whatever, he could focus on training himself and getting used to the powers he had brought back from the future. Thinking about this, he walked towards the Hokage tower, completely unaware of all the hateful glares he received from the villagers. Hokage's tower. The old man, here is in Saratobi, the Sandame, 3rd Hokage, was trying desperately to defeat the worst enemy that a person in a high position would have. He was trying to beat the paperwork when suddenly the door burst open and a certain blonde entered with the secretary behind trying to stop him. "Hey Gigi, I desperately want to talk to you," said Naruto, desperately trying to hide his emotions on seeing the man, who was like his grandfather, still alive. "Lord Hokage, forgive me, I couldn't stop the demon brat." She never got to finish her sentence as a massive killer intent leaked into the atmosphere, courtesy of the old man, making the secretary and even the Anbus in the room sweat profusely. Stopping the killer intent, he plainly replied to the secretary, "You may leave." The secretary left without even looking back once. "Wow, that was some intense killer intent, old man," said Naruto without even realizing what he had said. The old man raised an eyebrow looking at the blonde and asked, "Naruto, how come you know about killer intent?" Naruto, realizing his mistake, scrambled his brain for a reply, said, "I read about it in a book and its effects, and since it matched what I read, I assumed it was killer intent." He suddenly realized that he had just dug his own grave. Reading was like seeing Guy Sensei and Lee out of their green spandex suits and in a socially acceptable dress for once. "Naruto, since when did you start reading books?" asked the old man. "Well, recently I had nothing to do, so I went to the library and took out this book on Hokages, and in there I read about it," replied the blonde, desperately trying to salvage the situation. Luckily for him, the old man seemed to have bought the explaining since he had known that Naruto wanted to become a Hokage and thus wanted to know about his predecessors. "What is it that you wanted to talk about, Naruto?" asked the Hokage. "Well, it's like this, Gigi. Can I enroll into the academy 2 years later?" asked Naruto. The Hokage slightly raised his eyebrows after hearing this and asked, "Why is that so, Naruto? Don't you want to be a ninja soon?" At this, Naruto replied grimly, "I want to become a ninja and the Hokage, Gigi, but wouldn't it be best if I graduated with children around my age? I never had friends till now, maybe then I could make some friends. Don't you think so, Gigi?" "Very good friends are what I will be getting then," thought Naruto. Hearing that Naruto had no friends pained the old man. It hurt him due to the fact that it was all because of something out of his control. The grim voice of Naruto pained him further. So, he thought that since he wasn't there for him every time, at least, he would accept Naruto's request. So he replied, "Alright Naruto, you can join the academy after 2 years. Make me proud, alright. But what will you be doing for 2 years?" Naruto became happy at this and replied, "I will read up and prepare for the academy. Gigi, can I get access to the shinobi section of the library?" "Why would you want access to the shinobi section, Naruto?" asked the old man, raising one eyebrow at the blonde's words. The said blonde, realizing his mistake, replied, "I overheard some shinobis that chakra control is very important for a shinobi. So I looked for it in the library, but found out that it was in the shinobi section, and I was not allowed there." Naruto strung together an elaborate lie which the Hokage accepted. So he took out a sheet of paper and wrote some kind of permission form and signed it and gave it to Naruto, saying, "Here you go, Naruto, if you show this to the librarian, you will be allowed to the shinobi section of the library. Just don't get carried away and hurt yourself by trying to do some jutsus, okay? Learn as much as possible, because I expect great things from you." Naruto flashed his famous foxy grin to the old man and said, "Don't you worry, Gigi. I will get better than you in no time and take that hat from you, believe it. Got to go, bye." Saying this, Naruto took the form and simply ran towards his apartment. The old man just smiled at the blonde boy's antics and went back to his job of fighting the paperwork. Outside the Hokage's tower. "Wow kid, you sure know how to lie at a moment's notice," said Kurama. "If I didn't, we would be in a big heap of trouble," replied Naruto. "Yes, it would have been bad, so, when will you start working?" asked Kurama. "Tomorrow of course," Naruto grinned. It. You don't have time on our hands, kid. You need to train. You should not be slacking off," Kurama retorted angrily. "Who said I will be slacking off?" asked Naruto. "Then what will you be doing?" "I will go to the library, get scrolls on chakra control, elemental jutsus on all 5 basic elements, and some scrolls on history and tactics, and of course some on Fuinjutsu as well, and start studying them in my apartment," said Naruto. "Seems like my kid is not an idiot after all. But I suggest you to read them in an empty training area if you want to use Shadow Clone Jutsu, since we don't know what will happen if you use it with your present level of chakra control. And since the seal is not there anymore, you will have my chakra reserves and those of the other Bijuas too, which will definitely turn out to be disastrous if you try it in your apartment." "I guess you are right, well then, search for a new and empty training ground begins," shouted the blonde and ran off towards the library. After some time. At a secluded area some distance behind the Hokage monument. "Well, this is the only place I found which was far away from Anbu patrols and close enough to the village. What do you think about it, Kurama?" asked Naruto, holding about 10 scrolls in his arms. "Not bad kid, you do know what you should do sometimes. I am surprised, sneered Kurama. Hey, stop mocking me, you furball, shouted the blonde mentally. What did you call me, Ugaki? Asked Kurama, faking anger. Just live with it. We have got work to do. So give me a plan, okay? Asked Naruto. Okay, here is the list of things you can do and you can't do at the moment. You obviously have access to my chakra shroud without harming your body or mind at the moment. You also have access to one-tailed chakra cloak, but you will get hurt and slowly start losing yourself to the bloodlust. Above that, you have access to no cloaks. You have massive chakra reserves alone, probably 10 times that of the old man. You have kept the chakra reserves from the future. You have all your jutsus from the future, but you can't use most of them due to your shoddy chakra control. That is all. So for the next 2 years, you will start working on mastering your chakra level to at least high chunin level. Then learn to get over the bloodlust in one-tail cloak and increase the number of tails to 3 at the very least. Then work on learning some jutsus from each element. Since you have all 5 elemental affinity now, you will use far less chakra for the jutsus. Learn the basics of Hyuan and improve your handwriting to that level where you can use seals without fear of them blowing. That is all of it, explained Kurama. That is a lot. Well then, let us get to work, said Naruto and got started. Okay kid, let us see how many shadow clones you can make now, said Kurama. Naruto made the all too familiar sign and cried out loud, multi-shadow clone jutsu, and a huge puff of smoke surrounded him. When the smoke cleared, he saw that all around him, about 3,000 shadow clones were standing. Wow kid, even with your good-for-nothing chakra control, you can still make 3,000 shadow clones. Impressive, said Kurama, to which Naruto replied, should I be embarrassed or flattered, take it whichever way you want kid. Now get to work, scolded Kurama. Okay, I have got 10 scrolls. 5 on elemental techniques, 1 on basic Fuinjutsu, 2 on chakra control and 2 on Taijutsu. So, if I divide 300 shadow clones for each of those scrolls, apart from the Taijutsu, I will probably get all the scrolls down in a week at most. Okay guys, divide to groups of 300 and start practicing each scroll, shouted the blonde to his shadow clones. As soon as the order was shouted out, all the shadow clones group took their respective scrolls and went off to train. The original started doing physical workout. He knew that shadow clones sent back their memories to the original, but they did not send back the physical training, even though fatigue was sent back. So he had to work out himself. He started with 50 push-ups, 50 squats, 50 sit-ups, stretching exercise, and 50 laps around the training ground running, and another 50 jogging. By the time the original Naruto finished his physical workout, he was sweating bullets and it was late evening. In the meantime, his shadow clone army had made some progress at most. He managed to understand the theory behind the jutsus, but still did not want to attempt them due to his crappy chakra control. The clones had made some progress in memorizing the stances of 2 styles of Taijutsu. They also had managed to walk on tree and on water, though not very much. The Fuinjutsu scroll was the hardest, but he did manage to understand some of it. So, all in all, he knew that if he kept this training regime up, he would master all these scrolls in about 6 months. Then he could move on to next set of scrolls. He was about to dispel his clones when something came across his thoughts. Yo Kurama, how many clones should I dispel at a time without passing out or worse, going into a coma, asked Naruto as a chill went down his spine, thinking about what would happen if he would go into a coma. Okay kid, dispel 300 clones at a time. Wait for 5 minutes before dispelling the next 300. With me sorting out your memories here, you can do it every 5 minutes. That should enable you to dispel all your clones in 50 minutes without making you pass out. I will tone down the fatigue for you, said Kurama. Naruto did as he was told to and received all the memories and experience from the shadow clones. Hey kid, you need to start training on using my chakra soon. You will need my full power to change the future. So I suggest you to get your chakra control to mid-jonin level at least as soon as possible and then start working on using my chakra. As you say Kurama, replied Naruto, now all I need is a good shower, some sleep and above all ramen, thought Naruto as he ran towards Ichiraku's ramen. 6 months later. In the last 6 months, Naruto had managed to do a lot of workout. He had managed to master tree walking and water walking exercises. He now had 11 times the chakra reserves of the 3rd Hokage. But, because of that, even though he had managed to master the 2 chakra exercises, his chakra control was at the level of high genin to low chunin. On his Taijutsu front, he had mastered the katas of the academy-style Taijutsu, since it was the most basic one, and had managed to master another one known as Rotation Fist, which was based on quick rotatory strike, giving the enemy less time to strike back. Naruto knew that neither style suited him, so he had thought that he would master many different styles and combine them to make his own style. On the Fuinjutsu front, he had managed to get down the basics and had finally perfected his handwriting. He could start working on intermediate Fuinjutsu and start writing seals. Though, at intermediate level, all he could do were make some exploding seals, storage seals and flashbang seals. But, it was a start after all, thought Naruto. But at the jutsu's front, he had got the most points. He had managed to relearn the replacement jutsu and the transformation jutsu. In elemental jutsu, he had learned 2 earth jutsus. The first was, earth release. Double suicide decapitation jutsu, a D-rank jutsu and earth release. Hiding like a mole jutsu, a C-rank jutsu. He had learned 2 fire jutsus. The first one was fire release. Fireball jutsu, a D-rank jutsu and fire release. Phoenix Age fire jutsu, a C-rank jutsu. He had learned 2 lightning jutsus. One was lightning release. Electromagnetic murder, a C-rank jutsu and lightning release. Lightning beast tracking fang, a C-rank jutsu. He had learned 3 water jutsus. The first was, water release. Wild water wave, the second was water release. Gunshot and the third was water release. Water prison jutsu. All 3 were C-rank jutsus. Finally, he had learned 2 wind jutsus. The first was wind release. Gale palm, and the second was wind release. Great breakthrough. Both were C-rank jutsus. He knew that he needed more than C-rank and D-rank jutsus to rewrite the future, but without elemental manipulation training, he could not go on further. So he needed help. He knew only wind manipulation training, but without a suitable place to train, he could not get anything done. And to start working on using Kurama's chakra, he needed better chakra control. So, he knew he had to approach the Hokage, but didn't know how. Great, now all I have to do is go to the Hokage's tower, sneak into the Hokage's office, make the Anbus go away, activate the sound seals which I definitely have no idea whatsoever on, and then say to Gigi, "Hey Gigi, I am from the future, now help me with my training. I know about the Kyuubi and his name is Kurama," and then get myself locked up inside a cell 100 meters under the Anbu HQ for being controlled by the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Great indeed, thought Naruto. Come on kid, it won't go that bad. The old man will believe you. After all, they don't call him the professor for nothing. Besides, I will be there for you to explain if he does not believe in you, said Kurama. Yeah, to get me locked up. I don't know whether to laugh at the attempted joke, get surprised that even you can joke or get angry that you want to get me locked up. Maybe the former would be the best. Sneered Naruto. I am not that bad, okay kid. You humans do not know me, so you make assumptions that I am incapable of cracking jokes. Now go and talk to the third Hokage, said Kurama. Alright furball, but if anything happens, you are responsible, said Naruto out loud before running towards the Hokage's tower. 5 minutes later. Naruto was running through the village's populated street towards the Hokage's tower to meet up with the third Hokage. He noticed the glares that most villagers sent towards him. But he knew why he was hated this time. After all, he could not blame them. He knew what had happened that night of Kyuubi's attack. How Obito had released the Kyuubi from his mother. How he had cast a Genjutsu with his Sharingan and made the fox cause havoc, and how his father had defeated the masked man and sealed the Kyuubi inside of him. But the villagers did not know all of this. They only knew that the Kyuubi had attacked the village and they had lost their dearest ones and their beloved fourth Hokage in the attack. That was the reason why the people had seen him only as the demon itself and not the container. Their grief blinded their judgment. But Naruto was not bothered by this time. Because he knew that their views would change. Last time, after the wave mission, the people had started to see him as a good human being for a change. After the Chunin exams, after defeating the Ichibi Shukaku and protecting the village from it, the people had started to give him some respect and had started to look at him as some hero. After the failed Sasuke retrieval mission, after hearing that he had almost lost his life trying to bring Sasuke Uchiha back, people had started to care for him. After saving Gaara, the Kazekage, after coming back from the 3-year training trip with his godfather, Jiraiya of the Sannin, people started giving him a little more respect. But, what changed their views of him most was during the Pain's invasion. He had managed to defeat Pain and managed to revive all those who had died during the attack and had even managed to give hope to Nagato and Konan. And after Kitsayu, the slug summons of the 5th Hokage, Tsunade Senju, narrated everything that transpired, he was finally treated as a true hero on par with his father. These thoughts comforted him, and he knew that this time, he would gain their respect well before the invasion of Pain. Yes, he would and should change the future this time. After some time, in the Hokage's tower. Naruto was thinking whether to enter the tower and tell the old man everything or just let it go and go back to train however he knew. Just then, Kurama intervened, "Go on kid, you need the help of someone in power to change the future. And the third Hokage is the best man for the job. Besides, you and him share a grandfather-grandson-like relationship, so expect no adverse effect. And remember what Itachi said to you should never get arrogant thinking that only you can do everything. You have to trust others. Your father and his predecessors did not become Hokage because they were strong, but because they were acknowledged by people. They trusted others. So trust in others. Naruto. Hearing this, Naruto felt more confident and entered the tower. Naruto entered the Hokage's office without any incidents. The third Hokage looked at him and seeing that he had grown muscles and had become taller since the last time he met him 6 months ago, exclaimed surprise. Wow Naruto, you have grown. What have you been doing in the last 6 months? I hardly see you nowadays. Is there any problem? Seeing you, it seems you have problem with your training, if I am right. Asked the third Hokage. Naruto flashing his famous foxy grin spoke, Gigi, we need to talk in private. Tell those 4 Anbus hiding in the corners to go out and activate the soundproofing seals, please. At this, the Hokage tensed up and brought his guard up. The Anbus in the room also brought their guard up and reached for their weapons. At this Naruto said, don't worry Gigi, I am definitely not here to kill you. Besides, how can someone as young as me take on the professor? Please believe in me Gigi and do as requested. Hearing this, the Hokage ordered the 4 Anbus to leave the room. After they left, rather reluctantly, the Hokage activated the soundproofing seals. Naruto saw the ceiling with great interest, but before he knew it, a kunai was near his neck and the third Hokage spoke, whoever you are doing a bad imitation of Naruto. Tell me where is the boy before I kill you in the most gruesome way, and started leaking a large amount of killer intent. Gigi, it is me Naruto. Just hear me out will you? Asked Naruto, obviously not afraid of the killer intent in the least, having experienced far worse ones of Madara. This again did not go down well with the third Hokage, but he decided to hear him out. Okay, speak of only the truth. Otherwise, I will rip your throat, said the Hokage, still radiating the killer intent. Naruto replied, with you leaking such a huge amount of killer intent, how can I even lie? Truth is all you will hear from me, though it will be impossibly unbelievable at first. This confused the Hokage, and he lessened the killer intent, giving some room for the boy. Okay Gigi, I know about the Kyuubi. I have talked to him, said Naruto. This shook the Hokage to the core. He started to doubt whether the person in front of him was the real Naruto or not. He replied, I am starting to doubt you again. At this, Naruto asked, what should I do to convince you? The Hokage thought for a while and asked, when were you kicked out of the orphanage and where do you live now? Naruto looked sad for a little while and answered, I was kicked out when I was 3 and I live alone in an apartment in the lower class districts of Konoha. Gigi. The Hokage was assured that the person sitting in front of him was the real Naruto and felt a pain in his heart for doubting the boy and asking him things that he did not like to remember. He apologized to the boy, I am sorry Naruto, but I had to make sure that you were not an imposter. Naruto cheerfully replied, don't worry about it Gigi. Now back to the matter at hand, the Kyuubi has a name, Kurama. He is a friend of me. If Naruto revealing that he knew about the Kyuubi was shocking to the Hokage, this was like getting hit by a lightning bolt 1,000 times over. He took his time to recover, but before he could say anything, Naruto spoke up, don't worry Gigi. Kurama isn't manipulating me or anything. We are good friends now. I managed to remove the hatred from him. Oh and by the way, I know that the 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze and the red-hot-blooded Habenaro, Kushina Uzumaki, are my parents. That was the last nail in the coffin for the 3rd Hokage. He fell unconscious then and there. Did I take it a tad too fast Kurama? Asked Naruto. I don't know how you managed to get people to like you with such an amount of idiocy in you, replied Kurama. Hey, I am not an idiot, replied Naruto. Live with it, now wake the 3rd Hokage and let me talk to the old man if you can't, said Kurama. Alright, now don't get worked up over my lack of social skills, said Naruto. Only you could pass off idiocy as lack of social skills kid, snickered Kurama. Naruto managed to wake up the 3rd Hokage after some minutes and a great amount of struggle. The 3rd Hokage after waking up tried to speak but was interrupted by Naruto again, don't worry Gigi, I am not angry with my parents. In fact I am proud of them and now, I am even more encouraged to surpass them. And I am sure that they are proud of me too. The Hokage felt relieved about this, but then asked, Naruto, how do you know about all of this? Naruto replied, simple, I am a time traveler and started narrating the story of his previous timeline. Kurama told him not to leave any information out. So, he told the 3rd Hokage everything, including his death at the hands of his prized student, Orochimaru. Finally, after hearing everything, the 3rd Hokage asked, so basically, in the other timeline, you graduated the academy after stealing the Scroll of Seals or the Forbidden Scroll, learning a forbidden jutsu, and beating the traitor Mizuki with it, then saved the Wave Country from the businessman Gato, got a bridge named after you, beat sense into a stuck-up Hyuga prodigy. Beat Shukaku the Ichibi, beat sense into its Jinchuriki, tried to risk your life to prevent a friend from defecting and turning into a missing nin, went on a 3-year training trip with Jiraiya of the Sannin, brought the Jinchuriki of the Ichibi back alive as soon as you returned, then fought Pain, who was a former student of Jiraiya. Adam and knocked some sense into him and brought everyone who had died in the attack back to life, mastered the sage mode, completed your father's jutsu, managed to separate the chakra of Kyuubi, managed to befriend the Kyuubi and gained a new chakra cloak and finally managed to get the Sage of Six Paths chakra before traveling back in time. Yep, that sums it up, Gigi, replied Naruto with a poker face. I believe you, replied the third Hokage. It was Naruto's turn to get surprised this time around. He asked, you believe me? Why? The Hokage replied, when you told me about everything that happened, I saw emotions in your eyes that can never be impersonated. I saw the joy, the sadness, the guilt, the determination in your eyes that screamed out loud that you were not telling any lies. So I believe you, Naruto. But I still ask you, do you really trust the fox? Naruto replied with a drop of tear in his eye, thank you Gigi for believing in me. As for your question, yes, Kurama is my friend and comrade. So, I trust him, the Hokage, hearing this replied, if you trust the fox, then I will too. But, why tell me all of this? What can I do now? What should I do now? Who else will you reveal this information to? One question at a time, Gigi. I told you all of this because, at the moment, I can trust only you and you alone. All you need to do is help me with my training to get stronger. When certain, unfruitful events are going to happen, I will inform you. Then you can make the right decisions to prevent them. I definitely want to reveal this information to Pervy Sage. I am not going to let the only person I can consider as family to die again. Then I am going to reveal this to Granny Tsunade. Kakashi-sensei will know, but only after I pay him back after the graduation. That is all, said Naruto. Alright Naruto, I will lend you my full support. Now what help do you need from me? Asked the Hokage. Naruto replied, I need to know about different elemental manipulation training and advanced chakra control exercises. I have already mastered tree walking and water walking exercises. This did not come as a surprise for the old man after listening to the time travel story. So he took out a chakra paper from his desk, gave it to Naruto and asked, I suppose you know what to do? Naruto replied with his foxy grin, yep Gigi. He took the chakra paper and channeled some of his chakra into it. The chakra paper cut to make 4 pieces. The first piece became soaked, the second crumbled into dust, the third crumpled up, and the fourth burnt into ashes. This was the proof that the Hokage needed to believe that Naruto was truly a time traveler, so he believed him the utmost now. He asked, I suppose you get these affinities from your mother and father? Naruto answered, no, I actually had only wind affinity. I got the water from Sanbi, fire from Nibi and lightning and earth from Sage of Six Paths chakra. Naruto continued, I learned a couple of jutsus of each elements. They are either C rank or D rank, but most are C rank. I need more elemental manipulation exercises to learn higher rank jutsus at this, the Hokage answered to Naruto, alright Naruto, come with me. We will get you the best instructors so that you can get adequate training to change the future at this, Naruto interrupted, oh no, no, Gigi. Remember, I am still the village pariah. I haven't gained their respect yet. Besides, it would be best if I trained by myself. Because, I will soon start practicing on using Kurama's chakra since my younger body is not used to it yet. Alright Naruto, if you say so. Now, I will give you some scrolls on advanced chakra control and elemental manipulation. After you master them, I will give you scrolls on higher rank jutsus, said the Hokage. Naruto said, add a scroll on intermediate Fuinjutsu Gigi. I have already mastered the basics. The Hokage chuckled at this and said, seems like you inherited your parents' art. Alright Naruto. I will add that scroll too. Do you need anything else? Naruto thought for a while and replied, actually, there is a favor I need from you Gigi. The Hokage asked, what is it Naruto? He replied, I will find it almost impossible to hide my talents and act like a dead last this time around. Besides, I can't act like a fanboy to Sakura who was like a sister to me in the previous timeline. So, I will have to change this time. It won't be a surprise if I turn out to be the rookie of the year. But, it will help in getting Sasuke to become friend with me and I will get a chance to save him early on itself. So, I request you to make sure I get placed with the same teammates and Jonin-sensei as last time, Gigi. The Hokage was surprised by the maturity showed by the blonde boy in front of him. But, considering that he was a time traveler, he wasn't shocked. So he replied, alright Naruto. I will make sure to keep the teams the same as last time. Naruto thanked the Hokage and asked, when will you give me the scrolls Gigi? The Hokage replied, come here by this time tomorrow Naruto. I will get you all the scrolls. Naruto thanked him again and was about to leave when the Hokage called him. Naruto turned towards the old man. The Hokage with a genuine smile said to him, I am proud of you Naruto. Naruto flashed his famous foxy grin and did a thumbs up sign and left. The third Hokage then got back to doing the impossible, fighting and finishing the paperwork. The next day, Hokage's tower. Naruto came to the Hokage's office to receive the scrolls. He entered the office to see that the Hokage was busy with paperwork. But as soon as the Hokage saw him, he put aside the paperwork and from his desk took 7 scrolls and placed them on the table. He then said to Naruto with a smile, "Here are the scrolls for your training, Naruto. I will check your progress once every month. We will then see what is the best course of action to be taken with your training. Now, I will accompany you to your private training area. It is the training area 37. It has been reserved only for you. You can use the Kyuubi's chakra without anyone interfering. And I also should show you how to perform the exercises. A demonstration is in order. Now, shall we leave?" Naruto, with his biggest foxy grin said, "You are the best, Gigi. Come on, we can't waste any time. Let us leave, now." The third Hokage chuckled slightly before getting up from his seat and accompanied Naruto to the training ground to begin his more serious training. At the hidden training ground, Naruto led the third Hokage to the secluded spot behind the Hokage monument. After getting there, he said, "We are here, Gigi. My secret not so secret training spot." The third chuckled at this. "What's so funny, Gigi?" asked the blonde. The Hokage replied, "Strange that you would choose the same spot where all the previous Hokages trained. Your father mastered the flying Raijin. I was taught by the first and the second Hokage at the same grounds." Naruto was overwhelmed by this news, hearing that previous Hokages used this ground was too much for him. But, he fought down the urge to jump up and down in joy. Instead, flashing his famous foxy grin, said, "Well, add another Hokage to the list, Gigi. The Kano has orange Hokage trained here as well." The third Hokage smiled at the boy's enthusiasm and joy. Then he said, "Well, Naruto, shall I demonstrate to you the exercises?" "Of course, Gigi," replied the blonde. "But, can you do all the exercises, Gigi?" asked the boy. "Of course, Naruto, I had to practice a lot, but now, I can use all 5 basic releases," replied the Hokage. "Okay, Naruto, let us begin with fire manipulation. First, take a leaf in your hand and channel your chakra into it. Imagine that your chakra is heating it and add that imagination to the chakra. Then, burn the leaf with the help of it," the third said as he did the same thing. Then, after you have mastered this, you go over to a small body of water, like a puddle or something bigger, but not too big, and try to vaporize it with your chakra. Once you manage to do that, you will have mastered the fire manipulation, he said as he demonstrated it on a big puddle of water. Next is the water manipulation. First step of the elemental manipulation training of water element is to make a small amount of water into a sphere, using your chakra and channeling it into the water, while imagining it molding into the shape you want it to. "It would be best to make it a sphere for a start," said the Hokage as he demonstrated it. "Once you master that, you have do the same with a large body of water, like a pond, but not into a single sphere, but multiple ones," he said as he did that too. The highest anyone has been able to do was about 75 by the second Hokage, who had the strongest water affinity among all shinobis, which allowed him to draw water from the moisture in the air, said the Hokage. Naruto was awed by this and thought whether he could do it too, since he had a Soku's chakra too. Then comes the earth element manipulation. What you have to do in the first step is, take a small rock and make it crumble using your chakra. "It is the same principle as the rest," said the third while demonstrating it and continued, "Then, after mastering it, you do the same with a big boulder," he said as he did that too. Lightning element manipulation is next. You have to take a leaf and channel chakra into it. Just like the chakra paper, it will crumple and burn. You have to imagine that you are channeling lightning to it. Then, the chakra will do its job, said the old man as he demonstrated it. After you master that, you have to cut a log with your lightning chakra. That is the final stage, once again the Hokage said as he did it. He then asked a blonde boy, "I suppose you know how to do wind manipulation training?" Naruto replied cheerfully, "Yep, Gigi. Just get me that waterfall and I will get to work." "And what about advanced chakra control exercises?" "Cool down, Naruto, I will tell about them to you. But first, you need the waterfall," he said as he did some hand seals and called out loud, "Earth release." Earth-style rampart and a huge wall of earth rose. Then the old man passed through another set of hand seals and said, "Water release." Water basin jutsu and a waterfall appeared. He did the same jutsu again and an even bigger one appeared next to it. Then he said to Naruto, "Naruto, the bigger one is for your wind manipulation training. The smaller one is for your chakra control exercise. You have to run up and down the waterfall using your chakra. It is just like the water walking exercise. Just the next level. Then, walk up and down the wall in between the waterfalls with weights tied down to you. Gradually increase the weights. It will not only help your chakra control, but also increases your already massive chakra quantity and stamina." Naruto was just ecstatic about it and made the hand seals for his most favorite jutsu and said out loud, "Shadow clone jutsu," and the next moment, 700 shadow clones were standing around the blonde-haired boy and the old man Hokage. He then said out loud, "Alright, split yourselves into 7 groups and get to work on the exercises." While one group works on the intermediate Fuinjutsu scroll, the Shadow Clone Army followed the order obediently and got to work. Then Naruto looked at his grandfatherly figure and spoke, "Jiji, since I know who my parents are, is there anything that they left behind for me, like for memories?" The Hokage looked at Naruto and said, "Actually yes Naruto. Tomorrow, come to my office. I will give them to you." The blonde replied, "Thanks Jiji, I will come tomorrow." "But why tomorrow? Why not now?" The third Hokage replied, "I need some time to think over some things. And don't worry, it has nothing to do with your story." Naruto then replied with a grin, "Alright Jiji. I will come to your office tomorrow morning." The Hokage then left the place as the original Naruto got to climbing the wall with weights tied to him. The next day, Hokage's office. The Hokage was sitting behind his desk and was contemplating when suddenly the door to his office burst open as a certain blonde-haired whiskered boy made a very dramatic entrance for his age. "Naruto, you have to stop destroying the door to my office," he said as he smiled at the boy's antics. The blonde just gave his foxy grin and replied, "You know me Jiji, I just can't help it." "Yes, I picked it from Pervy Sage," asked the Hokage. "You know, Jiraiya, the Toad Sage and my godfather," said Naruto. "What a nickname," said the Hokage as he chuckled at that. "Well then, let us get back to the work in hand. Anbus if you will," he said as he looked at the hidden Anbus in the room. The Anbus left the room and the Hokage was about to activate the privacy seals when Naruto stopped him and said, "Jiji, I suggest you send that rude agent away too," pointing towards one of the corners of the office. The said agent, realizing that he had just been caught, shunshied away. The Hokage passed through variety of emotions before asking Naruto, "How did you know that he was there Naruto?" "Even I couldn't sense him," Naruto replied. "One of the powers of Kurama is that I can sense negative emotions and there was a ton of it rolling off that guy." The Hokage sighed and said, "Guess Danzo is up to his tricks again. I just can't stop him without reliable clues." "Well, I'll let you and Pervy Sage handle him, Jiji. Now, can we get back to work?" asked the boy. The Hokage nodded and activated the privacy seals. He then got up and went to the portrait of the fourth Hokage. He made a small cut on his thumb, drew some blood and pressed the thumb on the frame of the portrait. The portrait, after some seconds, moved up revealing a small storage space with 4 scrolls and some documents. He took all the things in the small storage space and placed it on his desk and locked the space again. He then turned towards the blonde-haired boy who was watching all of this with great interest and said, "Well Naruto, these are the things that your parents left behind for you. I will explain about them one by one." He took 2 scrolls which were comparatively small and said, "These are the letters that your parents wrote to you." I wouldn't exactly say wrote because Minato developed some kind of seal that when channeled with chakra could create writings on anything the user was thinking. "Your parents used it when they were about to die." He gave it to Naruto, who took it with a single tear in his eyes. He then took a scroll with a Uzumaki swirl on it and said, "This is the scroll that your mother left behind. It contains most of the Uzumaki Fuinjutsu. But, I suggest you don't try them until you have got down the intermediate, advanced, and master Fuinjutsu." He then took another scroll and said, "This Naruto, belonged to your father. This scroll contains the secret of Rasengan and your father's most famous jutsu, the Flying Raijin. All 4 scrolls need your blood to open." He then took the documents and said, "This Naruto, is the documents to all the properties that your parents owned." At this, Naruto openly gaped. The Hokage chuckled, "Now Naruto, you didn't think that the most famous Hokage and the most famous Kunoichi didn't own anything, did you?" he asked. "Your parents left behind 1 house, a couple of million ryo in the banks of Konoha and some other property," he said. Naruto could only gape at this. A couple of million ryo. Imagine all the ramen he could buy. No, he wouldn't eat too much ramen. He had promised his mother that he wouldn't eat too much ramen. Naruto then looked at the Hokage and said, "Jiji, I will just take the letters for now. Please keep all the documents and the rest of the scrolls with you for safekeeping. I won't shift to my parents' house until I am old enough and earn the respect of Konoha." The Hokage could just look at the boy and feel immense pride inside of him. He then said, "Alright Naruto, I will keep them with me until you take them back." Naruto was about to get up and leave with the 2 scrolls when the Hokage called out to him, "Wait Naruto, we are not finished yet. We still have things to discuss." Naruto looked confused but sat down anyway. "I was thinking on what you told me 2 days ago. Naruto, I want you to act as the class's dead last again," said the third Hokage. Naruto just looked at the old man and shouted, "What?" The third Hokage explained, "You see Naruto, you yourself told me that most of the fights you won were because you were considered an underdog. This time, you are very strong. So, if you keep the facade of being the dead last, you will have a massive advantage over your opponents. That is why I want you to do that. And besides, you don't want to change the future drastically to prevent us from predicting it, do you?" Naruto thought about it for a while when Kurama interrupted, "The Hokage is right, kid. We don't want to change the timeline so drastically that even we won't be able to predict it. So, agree to his suggestion." Naruto replied in his mind, "Alright furball, just don't press on it." He set out to the old man, "Alright Gigi. But, I won't go chasing after Sakura this time around. How long should I keep the mask on?" The Hokage replied, "Alright Naruto, you don't need to chase after the girl. As for your question, I suggest until Chunin exams." Naruto replied, "Are you serious Gigi? Chunin exams? By then, I will have had broken down, trying to hide my true self." The Hokage just smiled and said, "Naruto, by then, you will have had gained massive advantage by hiding your true powers." Naruto thought about it and replied, "If you say so Gigi. Anything else?" The Hokage replied, "Yes, when are you revealing the truth to the others you mentioned?" Naruto replied, "I will inform Pervy Sage after he begins training me. That is, after the preliminary rounds of the Chunin exam finals. Kakashi-sensei has to wait till after the exams are over, since I have a lot to get even on with him. Granny Tsunade will get to know once we bring her back." That is all. The Hokage accepted the answer and said, "That is all Naruto. You may leave now." The blonde smiled and said as he got up, "Okay, bye Gigi. I have got a lot to train for and on." Naruto then proceeded to the door when he stopped and turned towards the Hokage and said, "You know Gigi, have you ever tried shadow clones to do the paperwork for you?" He then left to get back to his training. The Hokage on his part could only gape at what the boy had said and curse his own stupidity. At the training ground behind the Hokage monument. Naruto had got to the training grounds, made 700 shadow clones, and had sent them to work on the training exercises. The original was sitting under a rather large tree with the 2 scrolls that his parents had left him as letters. He made a small cut on his thumb and smeared a drop of his blood on the scroll that his father had left behind. Intricate seal patterns spread across the folded scroll before vanishing altogether, indicating that the seal had been opened. He opened it and started reading. "Dear Naruto. If you are reading this, then, either you are a Chunin, if not a Jonin, or you have already figured out who your parents are. In case it is the former, it is me, your father, writing, not exactly, this letter to you. In case you are wondering who I am Minato Namikaze, the yellow flash of Konoha and the 4th Hokage of Konohagakure. Now, I suppose, you are either extremely angry with me for sealing the Kyuubi inside of you, or you are extremely awed that the 4th Hokage is your father. I sincerely hope it is the latter, and if it is the former, I don't want to say otherwise, because you have every right to be angry with me. What kind of Hokage is a Hokage if he asks someone else's child to be sacrificed when he can't do that to his own child? I hope you understand my predicament and forgive me. I am sorry for laying an unforgivable curse on you, my son. As for your mother, I won't reveal who she is to you, because, if you have this letter, you will have the letter she left too. I will give you her name at the most, Kushina Uzumaki. She is the most beautiful incident in my life and she is your mother. The reason I am writing this letter to you is to tell you what happened the day you were born. First, know this Naruto, you are not the first jailer of the Kyuubi. The first jailer was the wife of the first Hokage, Mito Uzumaki. The second was your mother, yes your own mother. The third, because of unfavorable events, is you. Isn't it strange that all jailers are Uzumaki? Now, back to what happened. During a childbirth, a female Jinchuriki's seal weakens, thus giving a chance for the beast jailed inside to escape. So, knowing this, Lord 3rd Hokage made arrangements to make sure you were born under the safest circumstances and outside the village walls. But, in spite of all of these, somehow, the information on where your mom was during childbirth was leaked to a certain masked man calling himself Madara. He also knew of the fact that the seal weakens on childbirth. That night, on the night of October 10th, the night you were born, he attacked the village and managed to release the Kyuubi from your mother. Because of her Uzumaki lineage, she survived the extraction. The Kyuubi attacked the village. I managed to defeat the masked man, but by then the damage was already done. I had to do something about it. Kushina requested me to seal the Kyuubi back in her, but I had this bad feeling that the masked man would return. So, I had to seal it in you, son. I believe that someday, you will manage to control the Kyuubi. I know that. The day that I and your mother found out that we were going to be parents, it was the most memorable day in our life. We were so happy that we were going to have a mini-me running around the house. We had dreamed of all kinds of fun we would have. We had dreamed of taking you to the ninja academy, bringing you back, teaching you new things, training you, celebrating your birthday, finding you a perfect girl, watching you grow. But, none of those came to be. The only regret that we have in our life is not being there for you, son. But, remember, we have always loved you, still love you and will always love you. Grow to be a fine shinobi and a fine young man. Find a purpose in life, find a dream in life. I am pretty sure you want to be the Hokage. So remember son, the fire's shadow illuminates the village. Minato Namikaze. Yours dearest and loving father. Naruto was on the verge of tears by now. Reading that his parents had built so many dreams for him had brought him to the verge of breaking to tears. He knew about what had happened that fateful night, but reading about his father's feelings was beyond explanation for him. "Don't worry, Dad, I will make sure you will feel proud when you see me. I do not control the Kyuubi, instead, me and Kurama work together, Dad. We are comrades. And believe me, I will defeat the masked man this time around," he thought to himself. He safely kept the scroll aside and took up the scroll his mother had left for him and did the same thing he had done for the previous scroll and opened it and started reading. "Dear Naruto. This is your mother writing the letter to you. I am Kushina Uzumaki, also known as Red Hot-Blooded Habanero, and the wife of Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage. I am pretty sure that Minato has explained everything that transpired on that night to you. So, I won't say anything more about it. Remember, son, I and your dad will always love you. Make us proud. Grow strong and be a proud shinobi. Become the Hokage just like your father and become a hero. Don't be a picky eater, eat a lot and grow big and strong. Take your bath every day, go to bed early and sleep well. Study hard on your ninjutsu. I was never very good at it, maybe you will. Everyone is good at some things and not so good at others, and if things don't go so well, don't get so depressed. At the academy, listen to your teachers. Make friends. It doesn't matter how many, just make sure that they're people you can really trust, and a few is enough. Regarding the 3 prohibitions of the shinobi, be careful when you loan and borrow money, make sure to save your missions, pay carefully, and no drinking alcohol until you're 20. Too much sake is harmful for your body. As for girls, well, I'm a girl, so I don't really know what to say, but sooner or later, you'll want a girlfriend, and that's normal. Just don't fall for a strange one, try to find someone like me. Oh, one more thing, watch out for Jiraiya-sensei Databane. Jiraiya is your godfather. Naruto, there's going to be hard and painful times ahead. Take good care of yourself, find a goal, a dream, and don't stop trying until it comes true. There's so much more I want to tell you, to teach you. I want to stay with you longer. I love you. Naruto, thank you for letting me be your mother, and Minato for being your father. Thank you for being born to us. Kushina Uzumaki. Your dearest and most beloved mother." Naruto was openly sobbing now. "Don't worry, Mom, you don't need to say it again, but yes, I will eat a lot and vegetables too. I will take bath every day and I will study hard. I will make a lot of friends. Don't worry, Pervy Sage has taught me all about the 3 prohibitions of the shinobi. I have already found the perfect girlfriend, even though she is a little shy. And don't worry, I will pull through the hardships. After all, I am the son of the 4th Hokage and the Red Hot-Blooded Habanero," he promised to himself. He then took the scrolls, dispelled the clones and started walking back to his apartment. Naruto's apartment. Naruto was shaken to the core by the letters. Not because of shock, but because of the fact that they loved him a lot. He was shaken because of the happiness he had felt when he had read the letters. He knew that training anymore that day would be futile. So, after dispersing his clones, he had come back to his apartment. He read and reread the letters many times before he noticed something in his mother's letter. It was a storage seal, which he noticed after reading the letter 6 times. He channeled some chakra into it, and after some seconds, the seal opened to reveal a haori, 2 shinobi headbands and a necklace. And, it was the haori that his father used to wear, the 4th Hokage haori. The headbands, he guessed correctly, were of his parents, and the necklace was definitely his mother's. He knew it since he had seen it on her when he had met her for the first time in his mindscape. Saying that he was happy was an understatement. He finally got something that was once in the possession of his parents. Their gifts for him. A legendary haori and a deer necklace. Naruto was almost jumping around in his apartment because of how happy he was. That night, he slept with a permanent grin attached to his face all through the night. A genuine, sincere smile-like grin. After another 6 months. In the 6 months, Naruto had managed to do a lot. He had completely mastered the wind manipulation exercises. Both, leaf cutting and waterfall cutting. He had also mastered the water manipulation exercises. He had easily gotten hang of doing the sphere with small amount of water. But, it took him some time to get the second part down. After 3 months, he was able to master it, and by now, he could make up to 50 spheres. He mastered the 2 exercises easily as they were his natural affinities. The next element manipulation exercise he had mastered was earth. He had gotten the first part down faster than what it took him to get down the first step of water manipulation. But, it took a lot longer to get the second exercise down. But now, he could crumble a boulder twice his size with his chakra. He had managed to get down the lightning exercises in 2 and 4 months respectively. The crumpling the leaves part was easy, but cutting the log was hard. But, eventually he had mastered it. The hardest exercise for him was the fire manipulation. Burning the leaf took a lot of concentration for him, since fire was his weakest affinity. Had he not been through the sage training in the previous timeline, he would have had broken down within a week of beginning his training. But, after 3 months, he managed to complete the leaf burning exercise without the slightest amount of fuss. The second exercise also took him 3 months, but since he was to evaporate a body of water, he managed it without much fuss. He had completely mastered the waterfall walking exercise. Now, he could do it subconsciously without even paying actual attention to it. He had also mastered wall walking and had increased the weight of the boulder to equal that of his own. This had led to an increase in his already massive amount of chakra. But, compared to what he had, the increase was small. But, his stamina had increased by leaps and bounds thanks to all of the exercises. His skills in Fuinjutsu had also increased rapidly. He had completely mastered the intermediate Fuinjutsu scroll. Now, he could make his own storage scrolls, exploding notes and flashbang notes. But, the most striking development was his own body's growth. Heeding to his mother's advice, he had started eating more healthy stuff. Of course, he had to use transformation technique to get the stuff so as to not be overpriced. Apparently, lots of ramen had hindered his growth last time. So, he had restricted himself to 2 bowls a day of ramen. 1 miso and 1 pork. He had grown to be the adequate height for his age, and his muscles were starting to show. So after all this, he had also started working on using Kurama's chakra. He had managed to easily utilize the basic chakra cloak. After lots of practice, he had managed to make the use of 1 to 3-tailed chakra cloak, though he hadn't mastered the 2 and 3-tailed chakra cloak. In his 1-tailed chakra cloak state, he could form 1 chakra hand without paying much attention to it. But for more, he had to focus harder. The most he could do in the 1 to 3-tailed chakra cloak states was 5 chakra hands. That was a lot more than enough. Now, Naruto was walking towards the Hokage's office. He had been there a lot of times in between to get subtle pointers and his casual visits. But now, he was going to return the 7 scrolls and to get the next set of scrolls. Hokage's office. The Hokage was reading a small stack of papers while his 6 shadow clones were going over and working on 6 large stacks of papers and documents when the door burst open and a hyperactive blonde came in asking, "Hey Gigi, how are you?" No matter how many times the old man had seen him, the boy never ceased to amuse him. So he replied, "I'm fine Naruto. Now, what brings you here?" "Well, I finished all the scrolls and here they are," he replied as he placed a single scroll on the Hokage's table. Seeing this, the old man raised an eyebrow and asked, "Naruto, I thought you said 7 scrolls. Where are the other 6? Naruto grinned at this and just took the scroll, spread it open and channeled some chakra into it and a small puff of smoke appeared. When the smoke cleared, there were 7 scrolls neatly stacked up in front of the Hokage. He then said, "I have mastered every one of those scrolls." The old man just smiled at this and asked, "I suppose you are here for the next set of scrolls?" Naruto took a little serious expression and said, "That and a little something else too Gigi." Hokage's office, Kant. The third Hokage, noticing the expression on the boy's face, understood that he meant that they were to talk in total privacy. So, he motioned the Anbus in the room to leave, which they promptly did. They had gotten used to this since 1 year, that whenever the blonde boy took on a serious look, it was time to move your ass out of the Hokage's office. Even the rude agents knew that somehow, every time, the boy would find where they hid and kick them out, though not literally. So, even they left. The Hokage then activated the privacy seals as soon as Naruto confirmed that they were the only 2 present. He then proceeded to ask, "Alright Naruto, what are the something else too?" "Okay Gigi, to put it bluntly, 6 months from now, there will only be 3, but if you count the dead yet alive Madara, then 4 Uchihas alive," he replied. "What?" The third Hokage outright screamed out, forgetting his old age, his position, his grace, his experience and everything else. "Ouch, Gigi, don't scream that loud. Seriously, even I will go deaf," Naruto bluntly replied. The Hokage realizing that he had all but forgotten his composure, calmed himself and said, "I am sorry Naruto. It was such a big surprise that I did not know how to react. So, would you please care to elaborate?" Seeing the confusion apparent on the old man's face, he replied, "I did say that to put it bluntly. Anyway, back in the last timeline, the Uchihas were planning a coup because they were being distanced by the village after they were accused of unleashing the Kyuubi, though not vocally. This led to a very bad turn of events which eventually led to the planned coup. Hearing of this, 1, no 2 Uchihas, Itachi and Shisui, informed you about all this. You then ordered them to somehow stop them through words and definitely not through the use of force. When it was finally established that words won't work, Shisui, who was a pacifist, fell into depression. Taking advantage of this, Danzo fought against him and stole his right Sharingan eye, which had evolved into the Mangekyo. So, to prevent him from gaining both of the eyes and unlocking its true potential, he gave his left eye to Itachi and then committed suicide, destroying his body in the process and unlocking Itachi's Mangekyo. But, when Itachi found out the same thing, he asked permission from you to allow him to assassinate all the elders who were planning this coup. You gave explicit permission to do so only and leave the rest alone. But, Danzo, manipulated the order by giving Itachi only two choices. Either kill all of the Uchihas or kill all but Sasuke. Itachi, being probably the best brother one could have, chose the latter and killed all but him, pushing Sasuke into the pit of revenge, turning him into a bigger monster than Danzo in the process, until he reformed after learning about the cycle of hatred from you and the rest of the Hokages after being released from the stomach of the Shinigami. Itachi then joined Akatsuki and became the inner spy working for Master Jiraiya. That sums it up, Gigi. The Hokage just sat there with a very contemplating expression on his face. The first part where he was informed about the coup and ordering Itachi and Shisui had already taken place. But the rest hadn't occurred yet. But he still didn't get why Danzo would order such a thing as complete massacre. His musings were interrupted by Naruto. Gigi, you with me? The old man gave a slight chuckle and replied, yes Naruto, it's simply that you just gave a little too much information to take in at the same time. But, why would Danzo order complete massacre? Naruto replied, actually, he will steal 10 other Sharingan eyes and implant them into his right eye, which will also contain the cells of the first Hokage. He really did go down a dark path in the quest of power. The only consolation is that he did all of those for the sake of the village. The Hokage replied, yes Naruto, Danzo is probably the most loyal Konoha shinobi. Maybe even more so than me. But, his methods are too dark and extreme. That is why I don't agree with him. Hopefully, we might be able to prevent all of those from happening. So, do you have anything else to say? Nope, that's all Gigi. I just hope that Sasuke does not go down the same dark path once again. Now, can we get to my training part? The blonde asked. The Hokage chuckled at the excitement the boy showed when the matter of training used to come up. He asked, alright Naruto, how far have you come with your training? The blonde replied, well Gigi, I have completely mastered wind and water manipulation exercises. I have also got down the rest, though barely. I have completed the 2 chakra control exercises you told me about. So now, my chakra control is at mid-chunin because of my even increased amount of chakra. Kurama says that the best I can get at chakra control would be mid-jonin. Luckily, he says that, by then, I will be able to throw a Rasen Shuriken from each of my hands. I have also mastered the advanced Fuinjutsu and can make my own storage scrolls, exploding notes, flashbang notes, and I'm working on paralysis seals. As you can see, thanks to mom's advice, my physical growth has also been accelerated. Last time, I was 13 when I had this kind of body. I have mastered the basic chakra cloak and one-tailed chakra cloak. In this state, I can form and throw the Rasen Shuriken, though an extremely weak one. I have also managed to control 2 and 3-tailed state. I am not going to try 4 tails or more until I master the 2 and 3-tailed state. That sums it up Gigi, he finished up with a big foxy grin. The old man was proud of the boy in front of him. According to what he had been told, in the past timeline, Naruto had been considered a failure. But the truth was anything but that. He wasn't thought correctly. This time, with the knowledge from the past timeline and determination, the boy was doing in months something that took most Jonin's years to do. He couldn't be more proud than that. And all of this would help him to create a better future this time. So, he wanted Naruto to grow stronger and better. So he said, you're doing excellent Naruto. I want you to completely master all of the chakra control exercises to be able to do them subconsciously and master the elemental manipulation exercises to such a point where you can do it in a whim. At this, the boy's shoulders slumped and he said in frustration, come on Gigi. Give me some more cool new moves. The Hokage chuckled and replied, yes Naruto, but do you know why I want you to do so? It is because, if you master all of those exercises, the strength of all your jutsus will be increased considerably. And, yes, I will give you some jutsu scrolls too. Naruto suddenly became happy at this. The Hokage was surprised by the sudden change of mood in the boy. He then went to the door behind his desk and entered the Hokage's archives. After some time, he came out with some scrolls in his hand, which he placed on his desk. He then said, okay Naruto, here are 6 jutsus, 1 for each element and 1 Shunshin jutsu. I can't give you any more scrolls on Fuinjutsu because you need a seal master to learn more. Unfortunately, the only one who is up to the mark, if not brilliant, to teach you is away. So, you have to put Fuinjutsu on hold for now. But, you can experiment with what you know. I am giving you permission because, knowing you, you would experiment anyway. Now, get to the scrolls. Once you learn it, I will evaluate how far you have come. Is that okay with you? Gigi, you are forgetting who you are talking to. I, Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, will never back down. Within the next 6 months, you will be fighting me Gigi. And trust me, you will not be able to take a breather when you go up against me, the boy replied with a foxy grin. Oh don't get cocky Naruto. I am not Hokage for nothing, the Hokage replied with a chuckle. Okay Gigi, I will get going, the blonde said as he sealed all the 6 scrolls to an empty scroll and left. You know Naruto, one day, you really will become a Hokage. The will of fire definitely burns bright in you, the Hokage thought as he made some shadow clones and got back to his work. Training ground behind the Hokage monument. Naruto sat down, took out the sealing scroll and unsealed all the scrolls from it. He then took them one by one to check which jutsu they were. The first one was the Shunshin jutsu or the body flicker jutsu. It was a jutsu in which the user would focus a lot of chakra to his or her legs and burst through a pre-planned path at such speeds that it was almost impossible to see without the Sharingan or perhaps the Byakugan. But the user could be sensed thanks to the chakra. He created 50 shadow clones for the jutsu and sent them to practice the jutsu. The next was an earth release jutsu, the earth release. Multiple earth style wall jutsu. This was a jutsu in which the user would channel his chakra into the ground to create multiple walls of earth. It was a strong defensive jutsu. He made another 50 clones and sent them working on the jutsu. Next was a water style jutsu, the water release. Water formation wall jutsu. This was a jutsu in which the user poured chakra into the water around him or her to create a wall of water around the user. The strength of the wall was determined by the amount of chakra the user poured into the water. Naruto sent 50 clones to learn the jutsu. The next jutsu was a wind style jutsu, the wind release. Drilling air bullet jutsu. This was a jutsu in which the user would inhale a large amount of wind and inducing his or her own chakra into it. The user then would exhale the wind as a compressed wind bullet. Due to the large amount of chakra in the compressed bullet, it would explode on contact dealing huge amount of damage. Naruto sent 50 clones to work on the jutsu. The next was a lightning style jutsu, the lightning release. Conductive shock jutsu. It was a jutsu in which the user would bind the opponent with ninja wires and conduct lightning through it to shock the opponent and cause paralysis in the target. He sent 50 clones to work on it. The last was a fire style jutsu, the fire release. Flame bullet jutsu. It was a jutsu in which the user gathers oil in their mouth created by chakra. Then the user would spit it out and ignite it and creating a bullet of flame. Naruto sent another 50 clones to work on it. So, 300 clones got to work on jutsus. He then made 50 clones for each elemental manipulation exercises and sent them to the training area. He then made another 100 clones to work on chakra control exercises and 100 more to work on the basic and intermediate Fuinjutsu. After all this, he started working on his Taijutsu. But he had hit a roadblock with it. Even though his earlier style was extremely effective, there were a large amount of holes in it. So, he had to start improving it and augment more style to suit him better. The best way to get good information on Taijutsu was to find Guy Sensei. Even though everyone had to question the sanity of the spandex-wearing elite jonin, his Taijutsu prowess could not be questioned. He was good enough to push the copy ninja Kakashi to an edge only with his Taijutsu alone. So, he was the best pointer. So, the original Naruto went to look for him while his clone set to work on the jutsus and the exercises. Streets of Konoha. Naruto had to admit. The guy was definitely hard to find if you needed him. And the frustration that came with it was ridiculous. Seriously, he had been searching for almost an hour and the spandex-clad Taijutsu powerhouse was nowhere to be seen. Now, he was asking himself whether he had asked the old man Hokage for help. But suddenly, as if on cue, a shout about youth came to be heard. And that was music to the blonde boy's ears. Finally, he had found him at last. Naruto just ran towards the source of the slogan of youth. He found Guy Sensei lecturing some chunin about the flames of youth. The chunin was almost at his breaking point. He looked like he would crack at a moment's notice. So, Naruto rushed towards them to save the chunin from the pain of Guy Sensei's flames of youth. As soon as Naruto went near the duo, the chunin noticed him and sent a glare at him. Naruto noticed the glare but paid no attention to it as he thought that the chunin must have lost someone close to him during the Kyuubi Kurama's attack on the village. Guy Sensei also noticed that the chunin was sending a glare and looked towards the target. As soon as he looked at Naruto, he also came to the same conclusion as Naruto and ignored it. He held no anger or hate against the boy and he knew that the Kyuubi and the blonde boy were two different people. He was also one of the only few people along with the third Hokage, Kakashi Haddock, Asuma Sarutobi and the Hokage Guard platoon that included Genma Shiranui, Raido Namiashi and Iwashi Tatami, to know that the boy, Naruto, was the son of the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze. But, it still hurt him that he could not do anything for the boy who was placed with a curse on him without his own knowledge. But what he didn't know was that Naruto was from the future and knew of all of this. Naruto went to the green beast and asked as if he was meeting him for the first time in his life, "Hey super fuzzy brow sensei. Are you my guy?" Adding the sensei unknowingly. But, unfortunately, Guy being one of the densest people Naruto knew apart from himself, he fell for it and replied, "Yes boy. You have come to the beautiful green beast of Konoha. I am indeed the most youthful might Guy." And you must be Naruto. May I ask what such a young and youthful boy like you want from me? Naruto, knowing that his act had worked, replied, Jiji sent me to you. Can we talk somewhere else? I concluded that Naruto must have had meant the third Hokage when he said Jiji, and he also concluded that Naruto wanted to go somewhere else because the people around were still glaring at him, though not very intensely as most were getting back to their work. So, he answered, of course my most youthful boy, let us go to training ground 9, as that is where I usually train. They both went towards the training ground 9. Training ground 9. After reaching the training grounds, Guy turned towards Naruto and asked, now Naruto, what did you want to talk about? Naruto replied, super fuzzy brows sensei, I am going to start my academy days in a few months, and I have been training hard for it. But in the field of Taijutsu, I found no growth. So, I went to Jiji for help and he told me that you were the best Taijutsu expert in Konoha and I should consult you. So, could you give me some tips? I am working on my own style. So, please help me. I looked at the boy and after giving his nice guy pose said, of course Naruto-kun, by all means. Now, show me what you have been working on. Let us move on from there. Now attack me with the style of yours. Guy took up his fighting stance. Alright then, here we go. Shadow Clone Jutsu, Naruto said as he made his favorite hand seal and a couple of Narutos poofed into existence. Saying that Guy was shocked was an understatement. A 9-year-old boy doing a B rank Kenjutsu without even the slightest sign of exhaustion was unheard of by anyone. Guy stood there gaping at the boy for some time before asking, Naruto-kun, where did you learn that jutsu? Naruto just gave his biggest grin and lied, you see super fuzzy brows sensei, due to my condition, it is impossible for me to do the normal clone jutsu that is taught in the academy. And because of that, I knew that I would fail. So, I went to Jiji to find a solution to that problem. Jiji noticed that I had roughly 5 times as much chakra as him, without consider that massive thing inside of me, hey, I am not a thing you brat. I am Kurama, the 9-tailed fox, so, he taught me the shadow clone jutsu, and I figured out its secret to use it in training, he finished with the same grin. 2 information stood out for Guy. One was that the boy had more chakra than the Hokage himself, which could essentially be translated as, he had the most chakra in the village. The second was that, he knew. He knew of the fox. So he asked with a little low voice, so Naruto, do you know everything? He was asking whether the boy knew of his heritage. Naruto, understanding what he meant, replied, yes, Jiji told me everything including my heritage. If you live a life that was as harsh as mine, you will end up meeting the fox. And don't worry, he is still trapped, if you could say so. And also, I am not angry. I am happy that I protect this village that my father gave his life for, and I will also do the same if the need be. Now, can we get to work? It was an elaborate lie, but Guy fell for it. I, after recovering from the surprise and shock said, your flames of youth burn brighter than mine Naruto-kun. Come, let us begin, he took up his fighting posture again. As soon as he said this, Naruto and his shadow clones started attacking him with all their power. It wasn't a highly refined style. But, it was highly unpredictable and effective. But, Guy soon dispelled all the clones after getting a basic grasp of the blonde style of fighting and told him to stop. He then said, very youthful display of your Taijutsu Naruto-kun. It perfectly suits you. Though it has a lot of chunks in it, it is highly unpredictable. Even I couldn't predict what you would do next. That is a big advantage for you. My experience won the fight for me as a matter of fact. There are some flaws in it which can be ironed out. I will help you in any manner I can. You need to increase your speed and strength. Your stamina is not a problem at all. So, to increase your speed and strength, I suggest you get some weights. Can you get them? Naruto pondered over it for some time and then replied, nah, I don't want to destroy myself, no offense super fuzzy brows sensei. Your training methods are a little extreme for me. I will not always be depending on Taijutsu since I have ninjutsu. But can you help me with my moves and stuff? I will work on my speed and strength. I replied, of course Naruto-kun. Now, I will get back to my duty as a leaf shinobi. Every Sunday, I will help you with your Taijutsu. But since it is your own style, I can only iron out the flaws. Naruto said with a grin, that is all that I need super fuzzy brows sensei. But, please can you keep all of my abilities a secret? You do know that the village still fears me for my problem, and then suddenly if they come to know that I can pull off B rank ninjutsus, they will fear me more than ever. I can live with the hatred, but I can't live with the people fearing me, he was pleading with Guy. I just took a look at Naruto and felt a pang of pain in his heart, seeing that the boy had matured beyond his age thanks to the treatment he had received from the villagers. He gave his nice guy pose and said, don't worry Naruto-kun, I will not reveal your secret until you want me to or you show it yourself. I will not even tell my eternal rival Kakashi about you. Hearing this, Naruto gave a genuine smile and said, thanks super fuzzy brows sensei. See you later. He then ran off towards his personal training field behind the Hokage monument. But just as he was about to leave, an Anbu with a weasel mask appeared in front of him. Naruto knew that weasel mask meant that the person in front of him was Itachi. But, he stayed silent. The Anbu said, "Naruto-kun, your presence is requested by the Lord Hokage." Naruto knew that Itachi did not hold any hatred towards him. Instead, he was one of the only few people who respected his father's final wish of seeing him as a hero. So, he replied, "Well then, take me there Anbu-san." The Anbu put a hand on Naruto's shoulder and vanished via Shunshin. The Hokage Tower. Naruto was transported to just outside the Hokage's office and the Anbu just disappeared soon after that. So, Naruto did the only thing he knew to do at such a time. He kicked open the door, entered the Hokage's office with the biggest grin he could give and asked, "Hey Gigi, I heard from Weasel-san that you wanted to see me. What did you want?" "Well, take a seat Naruto. How was your talk with Guy?" "Very wise of you to reveal neither too much nor too little," the third Hokage said as he motioned towards the chair in front of his desk. "Good, super fuzzy brows sensei told me to go to him every Sunday." "How did you know?" he asked as he made his way towards the chair. The Hokage just gave a slight chuckle, motioned towards the crystal ball on his desk and said, "Do you think I don't make good use of the crystal ball Naruto?" Naruto replied, "Actually, I thought that you used it to peep on women, since you read Pervy Sage's books." The third Hokage's mouth just fell open wide. He could say nothing but gape at the boy's knowledge. He then composed himself and said, "Now Naruto, let us forget about that. Come take seat already." Naruto just sneered and went to the chair motioned by the Hokage. The Hokage motioned the Anbus in the room to leave and activated the privacy seals. Noticing this, Naruto thought that something important must have had come up and Gigi wanted to talk to him. It was then, when he reached his chair, that he saw that another person was there with the Hokage. So, he asked the Hokage, "Gigi, what is Shikamaru doing here?" Shikamaru just yawned a bit before saying, "Only you would have the balls to call the god of shinobi as Gigi." The Hokage chuckled and said, "Naruto, I want to say that you are not alone." Naruto was getting more and more confused. Seeing this, Shikamaru said, "He meant that I am also from the future, genius." Naruto didn't know what to say. His mind was racing. Was this a joke? Was this some kind of dream? Or an illusion? Jinjutsu? Right, it must be a jinjutsu, he thought as he made a ram seal and sending out a burst of chakra shouted, "Kai," but nothing changed. The third Hokage was still there. Shikamaru was still sitting next to him. Seeing Naruto's predicament, Shikamaru just made a hand seal and suddenly, a shadow crept up Naruto's neck. The blonde started to panic and realization dawned on him. After some time, he said as he released the jutsu, "If you remember right Naruto, I learned this jutsu after the Chunin exams and when we after Sasuke. It was during the Sasuke retrieval mission that I used this jutsu for the first time against the Jinjutsu user Taiya. I broke my finger with it." Naruto, now assured that Shikamaru was indeed from the future, asked, "Alright Shikamaru, I believe you. But how did you come back? I mean, the last time I saw you in the battlefield, you were dead." Sadness was evident in his voice. The Hokage's office continued. The third Hokage spoke before Shikamaru could, "Actually, even I would like to know how you managed to come back. You have at present the chakra reserves at low to mid-jonin level. But, that is definitely not enough to come back. And also, at what time exactly did you arrive to in the past?" Shikamaru let out a sigh and said, "What a drag. But I'll tell you anyway. I was fighting along with Shaoji. Once he fell, I knew that I would join him soon too. So, I used all the exploding note and with my shadow stitching jutsu, I made a perimeter so that I would at least take away some of the enemy with me. The next thing I know is the explosion going off, Zetsu clones being blown apart and myself being cut down." He continued with a sigh, "The next thing I remember is that I was floating in some kind of white space which I definitely was not expecting. I was expecting something like blue sky and clouds or my parents, heck at least a troublesome girlfriend of mine. Then out of the blue, this old man with horns and Rinnegan eyes comes out of nowhere and asks me whether I wish to keep my promise. At first, I didn't know what to do, say or think. Then he told me which promise it was and told me that he was the sage of 6 paths. So, after thinking about it for a while, I said yes and here I am, 8 years in the past or present. I just arrived a week ago and I am already answering questions, what a drag." Both Naruto and the third Hokage were both surprised, shocked and dumbstruck. Here was a guy who had fought in a war, died during it and was revived by the sage of 6 paths, citing the reason that he wanted to keep his promise. As soon as both reached the same conclusion, they both sweat dropped. The third Hokage recovering from the legendary laziness of the heir of the Nara clan said, "A very exciting and brief story there Shikamaru. But, how come you came back 8 years into the past, whereas Naruto here came back 9 years?" It was Naruto who answered, "Actually, it would be best if I answer. The old man sage told me he would send us 8 years back too, but some of mine and Kurama's chakra leaked out during the process and we ended up 9 years into the past. The third Hokage, soaking in the information, said, alright, that answers my question. Now, Shikamaru, do you have anything else to discuss about? Shikamaru replied, actually, yes there is. Naruto, what do you wish to about the future? Naruto answered, I wish to change it idiot, believe it. Shikamaru continued, that is not what I asked you about. What do you wish to do? There is the Uchiha massacre coming up. Then the graduation. Wave mission, Chunin exams and many stuff. What do you wish to do about them? Naruto scratching the back of his head, answered, actually, now you mention it, I have no idea. Both Shikamaru and the third Hokage sweat dropped at this. Both thought at the same time, this is the guy, the sage of 6 paths chose to change the future. Shikamaru sighed and said, now I get why the sage of 6 paths wanted me to go back with him. Naruto didn't understand what Shikamaru had said and asked, what do you mean Shikamaru? Shikamaru answered, Naruto, you may be many things. Strong, determined, inspiring, miraculous. But, genius, witty, tactful, strategist aren't one of them. So, you need someone to help you. That is the reason why I am here, or so it seems. Naruto, understanding what Shikamaru had told him, said, okay Shikamaru, like I had told you once, leave all the fighting and physical work to me. You do what you do the best. Use your intelligence to come up with a plan to make the best use of my powers. Shikamaru smiled at this and said, that I will Naruto. But this time, even I will get stronger. I can't laze off somewhere and let my friends and family die. A strong mind needs a stronger body protecting it to work. So, I will get stronger and both keep my promise and protect everyone. Sarutobi hears and smiled at this. The two boys in front of him had a very strong will of fire. The future of Konoha, if it came to be, would be extremely bright. He knew it. Shikamaru continued, so, what have you planned for the future events? Naruto gave a foxy grin and rubbing the backside of his head said, now that you mention it Shikamaru, I actually haven't planned for anything yet. I was actually thinking of planning for it along the way. Shikamaru said with a sigh, you really are hopeless Naruto. Anyway, even though it is a drag, let us first concentrate on the Uchiha massacre first. Lord Third, what do you think about it? The third Hokage answered, I think that all those who are not even remotely involved in this should be saved. And Itachi must not be branded as a traitor. Naruto also added his part, yeah, I think so too. And Sasuke should not be lied to this time. Also add saving Shisui to it too. Shikamaru went to his thinking pose for some time and then answered, I agree with half of what you said and disagree with the other half. I checked over 500 scenarios and most didn't end in our favor. So, would you listen to what I came up with which I think is the most favorable? The third Hokage replied, very well Shikamaru, and say what you have in mind. Naruto nodded his head in approval. Shikamaru started, well, the first event was the loss of Shisui Uchiha's Mangekyo-ai. He somehow wakened it without the killing of someone close part or maybe not. It doesn't matter. What matters is, we have to save him and those eyes. For that, we have to keep Danzo away from him. Danzo has been more of a nuisance to the Leaf than we can afford. If I am right, the guy did nothing for the Leaf since Naruto's dad became the Hokage up until his death. The third Hokage was surprised at Shikamaru mentioning that he knew of Naruto's dad. Seeing the surprise, Shikamaru said, yes Lord Third, I know who his parents were. He told us himself. Well, at least to some of us. Now back to the matter in hand, simply put, Danzo must die. The third Hokage was shook to the core. Even Naruto was surprised. The third Hokage asked, and why is that so Shikamaru? Shikamaru answered, let me put this straight to your face Lord Hokage. Then you decide whether I am right or wrong. He stole Shisui's left eye. During the Sound Sand invasion, he and his root members did nothing to save the Leaf, hoping that he would be chosen as Hokage if the invasion succeeds or you died. Yes, he even leaked some important and secret documents to help the cause. During Pain's invasion, he did the same. But, even though Pain also failed, he managed to become the temporary Hokage. He even used Shisui's eye power to cast a Genjutsu on Mifune, the host of the 5-Cage Summit and the leader of the Iron Country, to make him the supreme commander of the allied shinobi forces, so that in the end, he could use the power for total domination. Above all, he wanted to turn Naruto into a weapon, and he was responsible for the Masked Man, knowing the location of Naruto's birth, and in turn was responsible for the attack on Konoha and the death of the fourth Hokage, along with Naruto's mom and your wife. In short, he took Naruto's family away. He may have had great loyalty towards the village, but his quest for power has corrupted him. By the end of his reasoning, Shikamaru, who was usually too lazy to show much emotions, was showing both anger towards Danzo. The third Hokage saw this. Saying he was angry was understatement. He was leaking ridiculous amount of killer intent into the room. If there were any civilians in the room, they would be long dead by then. Even Jonins would have had been inclined to commit suicide due to the killer intent. But the two boys had experienced far worse, so they were quite resistant to it. Naruto, sensing the massive killer intent, asked, "Gigi, what happened? Why are you so angry? Are you angry that Danzo harmed a leaf?" Shikamaru added, "Wow, you really have the brightest will of fire, Lord Third. No surprise that you love this village." But they didn't expect such a reply from the third Hokage. The reply was simple but said a lot: "Screw the leaf, Naruto is family. So is Bawako. Danzo shall die." Naruto and Shikamaru were both touched by the words of the Hokage. They understood what he meant. No one messed with the grandson figure of the Hokage. A single drop of tear escaped from the eye of Naruto. Shikamaru broke the moment and said, "Sorry to break the moment. Now, let us get back to work. Well then, it is decided that Danzo will die. But how? Neither I nor Naruto can take on the guy as we are now. And I doubt Naruto can access the whole of Kurama's power. So, we are both out. As far as I know, only 4 people can take on and kill Danzo at the moment. The first is obviously you, Lord Third. The second is Kakashi Haddock, and the third is Mido Guy while using the inner gates. And the last is of course, Itachi Uchiha. So, I suggest the latter 3 be sent together to finish him off. Since you can't leave the office, Lord Third, they can take him out during the massacre. I expect that Root will be there to make sure to take the Uchihas out. So, Danzo can be taken out then." The third Hokage was impressed by the intelligence and the strategy of the lazy genius boy. He smiled and said, "Very well, Shikamaru. I will make sure to do that when the time comes. Continue." Shikamaru nodded and said, "Now that is done. For the massacre, only those who will directly be involved in the incident should be killed. The rest should be evacuated to somewhere safe so that they don't get in between the crossfire. Itachi will be able to identify who will get involved. So that should do it. And, make sure Shisui is safe no matter what, and Itachi must be told that Danzo will try to get him to massacre his whole clan in exchange for it and should be assured that his brother will be safe so that only the involved can be killed. That should wrap it up. Don't you think?" The third Hokage smiled and said, "You truly are a genius, Shikamaru. You will definitely surpass your old man. I will make sure both happens. What do you say, Naruto?" Naruto gave his foxy grin and said, "I knew that I could trust you with my life, Shikamaru. You truly are a genius. I accept the plan." Shikamaru smiled at the compliment. Suddenly, Naruto was interrupted by Kurama. "What would you do about Obito? He was also present. And Itachi? What will happen to him?" "You're right. I will tell them that," Naruto answered. He said out loud, Gigi, Shikamaru, what about Obito?" The third Hokage, not understanding him, asked, "What do you mean, Naruto?" Naruto answered, "Obito was also partly responsible for forcing Itachi into massacring the whole clan. He was under the name of Madara then. And also, what will happen to Itachi and Shisui once this event passes by?" Shikamaru sighed and said, "Man, what a drag. You are right. I forgot about that fact. So, we have to make sure Itachi does not listen to the guy even if he hears him out. And I think that Itachi must join Akatsuki again. He should be labeled as an S-rank missing nin for that. And Shisui should be named as the new clan head. So, that should do it." Naruto burst out and let Sasuke get consumed by hatred again. "How about no?" Shikamaru replied, "Actually, this time, he won't be consumed by hatred." "Why?" "Because, he will have his mother and the clan members to protect. Besides, Itachi joining Akatsuki is crucial for us as we can keep tabs on them through him. But this time, he need not stay there forever. At the right moment, he will return. But I doubt that he can survive for long. Naruto, you do remember that he is suffering from some kind of incurable disease. That will be bad for us. So, to make the most of it, he should be in Akatsuki till the Chunin exams." Naruto nodded and said, "Sorry about that, Shikamaru. I didn't think through it." Shikamaru smiled and said, "Typical of you. But, that is who you are." The third Hokage, who was watching all of these from the sidelines, said, "Now that you have finished discussing the details, I shall set the things to play, shall I?" Both Shikamaru and Naruto nodded at this. Then, the third Hokage asked, "Is there anything else to discuss?" Shikamaru answered, "Nothing at the moment. Once the massacre passes, we will have much to discuss. Just fill in the important details to Itachi, Shisui, Guy and Kakashi. That will be enough." The third Hokage said, "I will, Shikamaru. Anything from you, Naruto?" Kurama said to Naruto, before he could answer, "Plan a training regimen for your lazy friend there and tell him about those root agents who have been tailing you for some time now." Naruto replied, "Okay, I will." He said to the third Hokage, "Gigi, 3 things. First and the most important, root agents have been tailing me for a couple of weeks now. I had to put off training because of that. Now that Shikamaru is also present in the meeting, he will be tailed too. I can sense and hear every negative emotions and a little neutral and positive emotions too. What I usually heard was, how do we get the Kyuubi vessel into the route? If we can't, how do we kill him if he goes on a rampage? What is all those meetings with the old man about? Those are all negative thoughts. I don't think Root can actually suppress negative emotions. I think they can only suppress positive ones. Naruto didn't notice the temperature in the room go down massively. But, Shikamaru did. He sent a jab to the blonde who asked, what was that for Shikamaru? Shikamaru answered, Lord Third is angry. It was then that he noticed that the temperature in the room had gone down by massive amounts, thanks to the killer intent of the old Hokage. Naruto and Shikamaru both thought that his killer intent could rival Madara's. The third Hokage angrily said, Danzo has gone way too far. He will and should die. Don't worry, I won't make it hasty. I will wait till the incident. Then he shall die. Does he think that he can get away after messing with my family? He will know why Tobirama-sensei chose me as the third Hokage. I will get Anbu protection for both of you boys. Anyone you want specifically? Naruto answered, Jiji, I want Shikamaru's Anbu guards to be Yugao Yazuki and Yamato Taicho, also known as Tenzo. And I want Shisui and Itachi Uchiha. That way, both can be protected from Danzo and Tobi. And when we are training, make sure that they don't keep an eye on us. Just let them set a perimeter around the grounds, which even they shouldn't enter. Our secret must not get out so fast. Third Hokage immediately agreed and said, they will be with you shortly after you leave, and I will make sure that they don't trespass on your training. And what is the other thing you wanted to discuss about? Naruto answered, it's about Shikamaru's training. Have you got any more chakra papers, Jiji? The third Hokage smiled and from his desk took out a chakra paper and handed it to Shikamaru. He then said, I suppose you know how to use it. Shikamaru nodded and channeled some of his chakra to the paper, which immediately burned and crumbled into dust. The third Hokage said, you seem to have equally strong fire and earth affinities. It will come in handy with your clan's jutsus. I am sure that Naruto will help you with your elemental affinity mastery exercises. Would you, Naruto? Naruto replied with a grin, sure, and we can also work on his taijutsu and stamina. Shikamaru lazily said, man, what a drag, but it can't be helped. The Hokage then asked, what is the third thing, Naruto? Naruto answered, I doubt that anyone will believe us as soon as you have when we reveal the truth. So, is there any memory transfer seals or like memory return seals? Like, by using chakra, we can return the memories of the other timeline. The third Hokage answered, there might be something like that. I will check on it and inform you. Naruto then said, okay Jiji, we are leaving. We have to start his training as soon as possible. The third Hokage chuckled at the blonde boy's enthusiasm. As the boy got up and started walking towards the door, he asked him, Naruto, how come you work so hard for everyone else's sake? Naruto stopped and smiled. He then said, Jiji, when I met Dad and Mom, both said one thing to me. Even Kurama said to me the same thing. They said that they believed in me. Now, how can I not work hard? Both Shikamaru and the third Hokage smiled at this. Then Shikamaru asked, Naruto, you really are something else. But, even after coming from the future, why do you still wear the orange jumpsuit? Can't you at least switch to the one you wore during the war? Naruto answered with the same smile, a small but genuine smile, my mother asked me something, Shikamaru. She asked me, what would we get if we mixed the Konoha's yellow flash and the red hot-blooded habanero? The answer was quite simple. The answer is that we would get the Konoha's orange Hokage. Shikamaru smiled at this and got up. He then placed a hand on the blonde's shoulder and said, well then orange Hokage, we better start training, and both boys left as the third Hokage sat smiling at the two's friendship. He then undid the privacy seals and called for his Anbus. He had lots of work to do, starting with arranging for Anbu bodyguards for the two boys. Streets of Konoha. Naruto and Shikamaru were walking towards the training ground behind the Hokage monument. They were discussing about Shikamaru's training. Naruto said, first, we will build up your stamina and chakra capacity till you can use at least 10 shadow clones for a long time. Then, we can use the same training method, which I use, on you. I suppose that, by the time of graduation, you will have had completed both the elemental manipulation training exercises. Suddenly, Naruto stopped talking and stiffened up. Shikamaru noticing this, asked, what is it, Naruto? Naruto answered, Root. They are here to capture us. You ready for a quick fight? Shikamaru answered, what a drag. I suppose we can. What I lack in chakra control, I gain in chakra capacity. Let us fight in some training grounds. I will trap the agents with my shadow possession and you can knock them out. Surprise is the key. As soon as he finished, both started to jog towards training ground 7. Naruto then said, I think that they are waiting for us to get to a secluded area. So, we have some time with us. Shikamaru nodded and started planning strategies on the move. While they were jogging towards the grounds, they passed a pier. Naruto turned towards it and saw a, once familiar duck-butt-shaped raven-haired boy. He was trying to breathe a fireball out of his mouth. Naruto was about to run towards the boy when he felt a hand on his shoulder. Shikamaru said, "Naruto, at the moment, Sasuke doesn't know us much. So, going to him and behaving like close friends won't work in our favor." Naruto gave a foxy grin and said, "Well then, let us become friends." Shikamaru sighed and smiled before saying, "Nothing can be done about you, can it? Well then, lead the way, dear Orange Hokage." Naruto pouted, "You won't let the Orange Hokage part out, will you?" Shikamaru chuckled and answered, "Not until you become the Hokage." They then went towards the pier where Sasuke was practicing the fireball jutsu, which wasn't going very well. When they got close to him, Shikamaru said, "Looks like you are having trouble with that jutsu. Am I right?" Sasuke scoffed at the comment and said, "As if you two could help me." Shikamaru smiled a cheeky smile at this and said, "Naruto, if you will, please." Naruto answered, "Gladly." Shikamaru he then made the hand signs before shouting, "Fire release." Fireball jutsu, and he breathed out a fireball that was nearly the size of the grand fireball and as hot as it. Sasuke just stood there gaping at the fireball in awe while Shikamaru was laughing out his heart. Sasuke, recovering from the awe, asked Naruto, "How did you do that? Even I couldn't do it." Naruto replied, "Gather chakra into your lungs, heat it and then breathe it out as a ball of fire. If it doesn't come out as a big one, use more chakra. That should do it." Sasuke, heeding to the advice, started doing as he was told. After a couple of tries, he managed to breathe out a decent-sized fireball. Sasuke was completely overjoyed and ecstatic. He was almost jumping up and down in joy, almost. He thanked them while doing a hard work trying to control his joy. But, both Shikamaru and Naruto saw that he was happy and surprised at the fact that this was the emo king who was thanking them. Once again, Naruto stiffened up and started jogging again. Shikamaru noticing it also followed him. Sasuke stood there some time before coming back to his senses and started following them, albeit stealthily to check whether they were going to train and if they did, to check whether they would allow him to join as well. Training Ground 7. Both of the boys made it to the training grounds within 15 minutes. As soon as they reached the center of the ground, 10 rude Anbu surrounded them. Sasuke arrived just then and after seeing the Anbus, chose to hide for then. But, Naruto sensed him and motioned towards Shikamaru, who understood. Luckily, none of the rude Anbus understood. Then, the tallest of the rude Anbus, apparently their captain, came forward and said, "Naruto Uzumaki and Shikamaru Nara, your audience is requested by Lord Danzo. Please come with us peacefully. We would like not to hurt you two in any way." Shikamaru and Naruto looked at each other and exchanged cheeky grins. Shikamaru then said, "If I remember correctly, rude isn't supposed to exist. They should have long been disbanded. Naruto, are you ready?" Naruto gave a foxy grin and said, "Go ahead Shikamaru." The captain of the rude Anbu said, "I think that you won't come on your own accords. So, it seems violence is necessary. Capture them." As soon as he said that, Shikamaru did a hand sign and shouted out loud, "Shadow possession jutsu," and shadow from his feet began to grow larger and capture all the rude Anbu's shadows. He then said, "Shadow possession success." All the rude Anbus found themselves unable to move. Naruto then did his favorite hand sign and said, "Shadow clone jutsu," and 10 Narutos poofed into existence. The 10 shadow clones went towards the rude Anbus and knocked them out. The two boys then tied them together. Naruto then said, "That was very quick. Guess they underestimated us pretty big, Dadabeo." Shikamaru replied, "Yes they did. And now, they are in big trouble." Naruto nodded and then turned towards the place where Sasuke was hiding and called out, "You can come out now, Sasuke. I know that you are there." Sasuke, knowing that he was caught, came out of the hiding spot and asked, "Who are they? Why were they after you too? How did you defeat them so easily? And how did you know where I was hiding?" Shikamaru answered, "One question at a time. They are root ninja. A band, if you could say so, branch of Anbu. They were after us for some reason which you need not know. We won because they underestimated us, and so they paid the price." Naruto interrupted then and said, "As for finding you, I sensed you as soon as you arrived." Just as he finished, 4 Anbus arrived at the training ground and were surprised to see the rude Anbus tied up and the 3 boys standing near them. Then, the Anbu with the weasel mask came forward and asked, "What happened here? Did any of you get hurt?" Naruto answered, "Don't worry Itachi-san, none of us are hurt." Itachi was totally taken by surprise. The boy knew of his true identity. So, he removed his mask. Sasuke was also surprised and he asked, "Brother Itachi, what are you doing here?" Itachi answered, "We were sent here by the Hokage." "Now Naruto-kun, how did you know it was me?" Naruto answered, "I know who each of you are. Yuga-san, Tenzo-san and Shisui-san. Jiji told us both who would be sent." Shikamaru, understanding that Naruto was weaving a very believable lie, nodded. Surprisingly, the Anbus believed them. Itachi then turned toward Sasuke and said, "Sasuke, go home for now. You may meet your new friends again tomorrow." Sasuke was about to say that they were not his friends yet when Naruto enthusiastically said, "Sure Sasuke, you can join us. How about every Saturday and Sunday, we meet here?" Sasuke was surprised that the boys considered him as a friend and happily nodded before running off towards his clan compound. As soon as Sasuke left, all the rest removed their masks. Itachi then said, "I will call for reinforcements to take these rude Anbus away. Can you explain to us how you managed to defeat such opponents?" Naruto answered, "They underestimated us. Shikamaru used his clan's jutsu to immobilize them and I knocked them out." The Anbus were impressed. Itachi then said, "We better leave. And we need a detailed schedule on what you do every day so that we can protect you more efficiently." Shikamaru answered, "Well, we will come up with one. We don't have a fixed one at the moment. So, Naruto, let's plan a schedule." Training Ground 7. Naruto asked, "What kind of schedule?" Shikamaru answered, "Well Mr. Orange Hokage, we need to get stronger. I need to get stronger. Duh." Naruto pouted and said, "Stop that Orange Hokage thing Shikamaru." Shikamaru smirked and said, "Not until you become the Hokage." The Anbu smiled at the boy's squabble. It was good to see that the boy who was shunned by most of the villagers had someone he could call a friend. All of a sudden, 10 more Anbus arrived. The 4, who were already present, put on their masks. They, apparently, had come to take away the rude Anbus. The 4 went to the newly arrived group to inform about the situation. Shikamaru took advantage of the situation and said to Naruto in a hushed voice, "Let us not discuss about what we will be doing. We can do it once we get to that training ground of yours. Let us now discuss about at what time we will meet." Naruto nodded and started thinking about the schedule and how it should be as Shikamaru did the same. The 4 Anbus returned after the rude Anbus were taken away. They once again removed their masks. Itachi then asked, "Have you decided your schedule yet?" Shikamaru answered on behalf of both of them, "Yes, we have. We will leave our house at 6 AM and go for a jog around the village. Then meet up behind the Hokage monument. Then, by evening, around 4 PM, we will go back." Naruto nodded and added, "I will probably train for a couple of hours more." Shikamaru said with a disapproval, "No Naruto, you would better go home too." Naruto replied, "Why? It's not like anyone will be waiting for me." A pang of sadness came over the faces of everyone present there. Shikamaru said, "If you want to, you can come with me to watch the clouds. Choji will be there too." Itachi added, "And maybe, Sasuke would also like to join you too. If you want to, I will ask him." Naruto brightened up at this and happily exclaimed, "Really? Thanks Shikamaru. Thanks Itachi Nai-san." Everyone smiled at the boy's happiness. Itachi was surprised that Naruto had called him brother, but it didn't feel bad. So, he let it pass. Itachi then said, "Very well then. We will be within 50 feet of you two all the time until our job ends. And, during your training behind the Hokage monument, we will set up a barrier and a perimeter around the grounds so that no one can attack you. And don't worry, we won't spy on you. We don't know why, but it seems like Lord Hokage trusts you two a lot. So, we trust you too. That is all. Now, we will get to our posts." Both the boys nodded as the Anbus vanished and Naruto sensed that they had got to their positions. Then, both the boys separated as they promised to meet up the next day at 6 AM near the main gates. The next day Konoha's main gates. Naruto had already arrived at the main gates and was now waiting for Shikamaru to arrive, rather impatiently. After waiting for some minutes, which seemed like hours for Naruto, Shikamaru arrived with a very big yawn and with a very lazy expression. There was no end to Naruto's anger towards the lazy genius. It was further aggravated by the fact that Kurama was rolling on the ground due to laughing inside his mindscape. He shouted towards the lazy boy, "Where the hell have you been Shikamaru? I have been waiting for who knows how long. You are late." Shikamaru sighed while holding both of his index fingers to his ears. He then said, "Have you seen the time Naruto? It's still 2 minutes to 6. You say I am late. In fact, you are early. Besides, you can pick up the habit and annoy your sensei maybe." Naruto was both annoyed and happy at the same time. He was annoyed because, in the end, as pointed out by Shikamaru, he was early and the lazy boy was not late. He was happy because he had finally found a way to annoy his sensei, even though he knew the reasons for the lateness of his sensei. Maybe, adding the woeful explanation as a revenge would also annoy him, he thought. Naruto, after calming down, said, "Okay, Shikamaru, we will jog through the training grounds 3, 4, 5, 6 and 9, and from there go towards the grounds behind the Hokage monument. That should be enough for now. It will probably take us 1 to 1.5 hours with our present stamina and strength." Shikamaru replied, "What a drag. Okay, we will. Hopefully, by the time we graduate, we will be a lot stronger than before." Then, they both said of jogging. Along the way, they passed through the empty training grounds 3, 4, 5 and 6, and also through a rather loud training ground 9. The noise was from Guy-sensei, who himself was going through his daily exercises. When he saw the two boys, he rushed at them, cried happy waterfalls while shouting something about their flames of youth, and had finally given them tips on physical exercises before letting them go. After an hour and 15 minutes, they reached the grounds behind the Hokage monument. Naruto sensed that the four Anbus had scattered, most likely to set up a perimeter and a barrier to keep away the root ninjas. Naruto heaved a sigh of relief, knowing that they won't be nosing into their training, and also that they would be safe from Danzo and Root as long as the Anbus were near. Training ground behind the Hokage monument. Naruto and Shikamaru made their way towards the place where the Hokage had made a waterfall and a cliff with his jutsus. Shikamaru was stunned by seeing this. Naruto chuckled at this. Even he had to agree though, that Jiji's jutsu totally overshadowed the one that Captain Yamato had done in the previous timeline. Recovering from the awe, Shikamaru said, okay, we both need to get strong to change the future. But, getting strong without a plan is useless. So, we need to make sure we grow in all areas rather than one or two. Getting more jutsus is as important as mastering the ones you have. So, first, let us begin with telling each other what our present situation is with our abilities. Naruto, you begin. Tell me your chakra capacity, abilities, control and the jutsus you know. Naruto replied, okay Shikamaru. My chakra capacity is definitely above Kage level. It is 5 times as much as Jiji's. Add Kurama's chakra too and it becomes like 150 or so times. I have like mid-chunin level chakra control. It's really hard to better it thanks to my already huge capacity in Kurama's chakra. I will never be affected by Jinjutsu thanks to Kurama and Old Man Sage's chakra. My Taijutsu is my own style and I am still starting to develop it. Even Super Fuzzy Brow Sensei also said that it is really effective. I can't cast Jinjutsu unless it uses huge amount of chakra. As for my ninjutsu, it's my strong point. I can use wind release, water release, earth release, lightning release and fire release in order of affinities. I can also use yin release, yang release and yin-yang release. Then, I can also use magnet release, coral release, lava release, steam release, acid release, scale release and ink release. Shikamaru's jaws dropped to the ground. After recovering, he said, I have never heard anyone with so many releases. Most of it, I haven't even heard of. You really are something else Naruto. Naruto smiled as he rubbed the back of his head and said, well, I am the pseudo-Jinchuriki of every tailed beast. So, I get their powers as well. And, there is Old Man Sage's chakra as well. Anyway, as for the jutsus I know the Academy 2 and Shadow Clones. Then, I know Wind Release. Gale Palm and Wind Release. Great breakthrough for Wind Release and was starting to work on Wind Release. Drilling Air Bullet. I know Water Release. Wild Water Wave, Water Release. Gunshot and Water Release. Water Prison for Water Release and was about to learn Water Release. Water Formation Wall. I know Earth Release. Double Suicide Decapitation Jutsu and Earth Release. Hiding like a mole jutsu for Earth Release and was about to work on Earth Release. Multiple Earth-style wall jutsu. Then, I know, Lightning Release. Electromagnetic Murder and Lightning Release. Lightning Beast Tracking Fang for Lightning Release and was to work on Lightning Release. Conductive Shock Jutsu. I know Fire Release. Fireball Jutsu and Fire Release. Phoenix Age Fire Jutsu for Fire Release and was about to begin on Fire Release. Flame Bullet Jutsu. I was also about to work on Body Flicker Jutsu. Then, I can use Rasengan and many of its variants. I can't use either Rasen Shuriken or its variants yet. And I haven't tried Sage Mode yet. I can use Lava Release. Lava Bullet Steam Release. Unrivaled Strength, Steam Release. Erupting Propulsion Fist as other release moves. And I can utilize version 1 form of Jinchuriki transformation and have already mastered 1-tailed state. And I will begin to master the 2 and 3-tailed state of my version 1 form. Also, my Fuinjutsu is at intermediate level. I can make exploding notes, paralysis notes, flashbang notes and storage scrolls. I need a Fuinjutsu master to get to a higher level. That sums it up. Shikamaru was at awe of the blonde's jutsu knowledge and growth. He said, well, that is a lot. As for me, my Jinjutsu is non-existent even though I can both cast and release them. My chakra capacity is at low Jonin level and chakra control in my present state is non-existent. My Taijutsu is only up to the mark. My jutsu are mostly clan-based, which include Earth Release. Practice Break Jutsu, Shadow Clutch Jutsu, Shadow Gathering Jutsu, Shadow Imitation Shuriken Jutsu, Shadow Imitation Jutsu, Shadow Sewing Jutsu, and Shadow Neck Binding Jutsu. That is all. He continued, we both have lot to work on. Even though you have grown a lot stronger, it isn't enough. So, first, learn the moves you said you were working on. Also, master every chakra control exercises so that your chakra control can keep up with your chakra capacity. Then, learn to do the Academy Jutsus and Body Flicker and also the Shadow Clones without hand seals. Then, master the Rasengan and learn to do it single-handed. That should keep you occupied for some time. And also work on physical aspects of your body, shuriken and kunai throwing and taijutsu. Naruto nodded and said, okay. What about you? Shikamaru answered, I have to start from scratch. Lucky for me, at my chakra capacity, I can do about 5 shadow clones. I will have them work on the chakra control and elemental affinity mastery for the next 6 months and I will work on my physical body. That should do it for now. Both boys nodded, did a fist bump and got to training. It would be a long 6 months till the massacre day for them. 6 months later. During the 6 months since Shikamaru's arrival, both the boys had trained on a regular basis. Naruto had been to the Nara clan compound and the Akimichi clan compound quite a few times, thanks to Shikamaru's and Chaoji's invitations. He had also become good friend with Chaoji in the meantime. Sasuke had also warmed up to the 3 boys, eventually enough to call them his best friends, especially Naruto. To Sasuke, Naruto had become a friendly rival. He proclaimed that in front of the group, surprising the 2 time travelers who questioned themselves whether this was the same emo king of their previous timeline. During weekends, the 2 time travelers would train basic chakra control exercises taught in the academy with the 2 other boys. The blonde and the lazy genius, when questioned about how they had mastered the exercises, replied that they had been doing that for quite some time. Luckily, both the boys had bought the story. So, their secret training was still a secret. Shikamaru's chakra capacity had grown from low Jonin level to mid Jonin level. He was now using 10 shadow clones instead of the initial 5. He had already mastered the leaf sticking exercise, tree walking exercise, water walking exercise and their variants. He was now working on extending the time doing those. At the moment, each of his clones could stand for an hour sticking to the tree and for 30 minutes on the water. He was hoping to extend those to 5 and 3 hours respectively. He was also making good progress in the elemental manipulation exercises. He had mastered the first stages of the exercises and was now working on the second stages. As for Naruto, his chakra control had increased from mid-chunin to high chunin level. His chakra capacity had also increased. He had learned all the jutsu he had been working on and had managed to do the academy jutsus without hand seals. He was now working on doing the shadow clones without the hand seals. He had finally managed to do the Rasengan single-handed and was now trying to do it in his left hand without the Sage mode. Naruto had found out about the promise that the old man Sage had asked whether Shikamaru would like to keep. It was a memorable talk for him as a matter of fact. Flashback. It was about 2 in the afternoon and both Shikamaru and Naruto were taking a break from training. They were totally exhausted and now they were watching clouds. It had been 2 months since Shikamaru had come back from the future. They were both peacefully watching the clouds. Suddenly, Naruto remembered about the talk with Jiji. He remembered that Shikamaru had said something about a promise and ever since that day, it had started to bore through his brain. Shikamaru had not elaborated about it and that had made it so suspense-filled promise that he wanted to know about it at all cost. So, he decided to ask the lazy boy. Naruto got up and took up a sitting position with legs crossed. He asked Shikamaru, that day, you said something about the old man Sage asking you whether you would like to keep your promise. What was that promise? Shikamaru, at this, lifted an eyebrow and sighed. He then said, leave it Naruto. It is just a drag. Naruto wasn't silenced by this, he pressed on, come on Shikamaru. Tell me the truth. Shikamaru sighed again and said, what a drag. Why do you need to know the truth? Naruto's mood dropped at this. He said with a little sad voice, I have been lied to, half of my life. I have been hated for the truth I had been denied. I was left without a family for a truth that was hidden. That, Shikamaru, is why I wish to know the truth. Shikamaru noted the apparent sadness hidden underneath the anger in the blonde's voice. He sighed to himself knowing that he had no other option but to tell him. So, he said, that day on the battlefield, when you saved my life by giving Kurama's chakra, I figured out something. You are just like the first Hokage. You are stupid and jolly goer. But unlike him, you don't have an intelligent younger brother to guide or advise you. In your childhood, you were lonely. I made a mistake by not being a friend of you. I regret that. I didn't want you to be lonely anymore. So, I promised myself and my dad that when you become the Hokage, I would be with you as your chief advisor and guide you as a brother, just like the second Hokage was to the first, because no one is better advisor to you than me. Naruto sat there dumbfounded as a couple of teardrops escaped his eye and fell to the ground. He then said, thank you Shikamaru. You don't know how important those words are for me. It's good to know that there is a friend to rely on, no brother to rely on. Thank you again. Shikamaru sighed and said, what a drag. You don't need to thank me, Naruto. I just want to correct my mistakes. Naruto looked at him and held his right fist out for a fist bump and said, if so, we will both correct our mistakes together, Dadabeo. Shikamaru looked at him, smiled and did the fist bump and said, okay then Orange Hokage, let us do it together. He was really happy for finding such a friendship. He knew that this time, he wouldn't be lonely. That thought alone gave him massive confidence boost. But for now, he had other things to concentrate on. It was only a week till the Uchiha massacre. He hoped that it would go as planned. A week before the massacre. Itachi was bothered. Recently, the upper members of his clan, the heads and advisors, were planning a coup against the Hidden Leaf village. They had thought that the village had betrayed their trust, and so, it needed to be taught a lesson, and also the leadership of the village should belong to an Uchiha, which, they thought was their rightful inheritance. Even, Shisui had been bothered by this. They thought that these were absolutely stupid ideas, but couldn't do anything about it. But, more than anything, what bothered them was, a man in a spiral face mask. Surprisingly, the third Hokage had already warned them about the man, and that he should be avoided at all costs. And, so, they had managed to stay away from the man, who was definitely playing a major role in the coup. But recently, things had taken a violent turn. The two pacifists were invited to a clan meeting, which, neither of them attended. So, they were confronted by some stuck-up Uchihas, only to be beaten up by the two prodigies. They, however, did attend another meeting as they didn't want the repeat of the incident. But, they regretted the decision soon. Because, they had to endure the arrogant Uchiha's high-headedness. The only exception was Fugaku Uchiha, the clan head and Itachi's father. But, the actual reason they had to regret their decision was because they had been assigned a mission. Specifically, a mission to assassinate the third Hokage. Only the clan head, Fugaku Uchiha, looked sad at this, and they instantly knew that he had failed to convince the others that it was a bad idea. So, they also couldn't say anything about it. This was the thing that was bothering Itachi as he waited to see the third Hokage with Shisui. As they were invited into the Hokage's office, they saw that the Hokage looked gloomier than ever. It was as if the Hokage knew what they were about to tell him. As if on cue, the third Hokage spoke up, I know why you two are here. Isn't it about the assassination mission? Both, Itachi and Shisui were surprised by this. Itachi, who was first to come out of the surprise, asked, how do you know Lord Hokage? The Hokage answered, I knew all along that I would be targeted eventually. So, what do you two want to say about it? Both of them answered at the same time, it is utterly stupid. They won't succeed. The Hokage just nodded and then said, would you two accept a secret S-ranked mission? They were surprised that the Hokage was giving them an S-rank mission at such a time. But for them loyalty towards the village and duty came first. So, they said, of course, Lord Third. What are the mission details? The Hokage nodded and said, to assassinate everyone involved in the massacre. Both the Uchihas were shocked by this. But before they could interrupt, the Hokage continued, I know this is sudden, but a problem should be solved before it goes out of hand. The innocent Uchihas will be sent to somewhere safe, and only the ones who are involved in the coup shall be killed. Will you accept? Both of them thought about it. If they could just assassinate the ones involved, they could prevent unnecessary bloodshed and loss of lives. Most of the Uchihas would be safe too. The pros outweighed the cons. So, they said, we accept, Lord Hokage. The Hokage smiled and said, very well then. Shisui will most probably become the new clan head because Itachi's mission will not end there. This surprised both of them. So, they asked, what do you mean Lord Hokage? The Hokage answered, Shisui's involvement in this affair will be kept a secret, whereas Itachi's will not be. He will instead be branded as an S-rank missing ninja. His mission, from there, will be to join the organization known as Akatsuki. Once you do so, you will send important information of their activities to Jiraiya. He will be informed about the mission. He will then send the information to me. Of course, these are only if you accept, Itachi. Itachi thought about it for a while and then asked, what is so special about this organization, Lord Hokage? The Hokage answered, it is an organization consisting only of S-rank missing ninjas. According to Jiraiya's reports, they are after all the tailed beasts. Both Itachi's and Shisui's eyes widened at this. Both of them came to the same conclusion. This was a dangerous organization, plotting the destruction of elemental nations. But, one important thing crossed their mind, and Itachi voiced it, they will come for Naruto-kun. The third Hokage nodded his head in a grave way. Itachi, after weighing every information, said, I accept Lord Hokage. We won't disappoint you. How long will the mission for my part be? The Hokage replied, as long as it takes to delay them or till I tell you to abandon the mission. Both of the Uchihas nodded and said, we accept Lord Hokage. The Hokage nodded and said, very well, your mission will begin in a week. Every innocent Uchiha will be transported to a safe location. There is a chance that Danzo will try to manipulate you to kill the whole clan. But, don't pay heed to him. because he plans to extract Sharingan eyes of the dead Uchihas. So, dispose of the bodies as soon as you kill them, while I will make a small squad to kill Danzo. Itachi, as soon as you finish your first part of the mission, leave for the second part immediately. If you meet your brother, tell him that you will explain everything to him when you get the chance. Now, you two may leave. The two Uchihas nodded and left while mentally planning for the assassination. The night of the massacre. Assassinating the clan elders and those who were involved in the coup plan was easy for Itachi and Shisui, and they had carefully disposed their bodies. The only person left to be assassinated was the current clan head, Fugaku Uchiha. Itachi had already sent away Shisui so that his involvement would be kept a secret and the innocent clan members were at a safe location. His father was most likely to be at their house. So, he went there first. As expected, Itachi found his father inside their home. His father sensed him but did not fight him. Instead, he sat where he was, still. Itachi moved forward with an unwilling heart to kill his father. Sensing his predicament, his father said, "Don't hesitate, Itachi. You are fulfilling your duty towards the village. That is a great honor indeed. I just hope that the Uchiha's name shall regain its pride as an important and loyal clan of Konoha after my death. Hopefully, Shisui will make sure that it happens. Remember son, no matter which path you take, I am proud of you." Itachi, for his part, was at a loss of words. He said, "I am sorry for doing this father," as he ran his sword through his father's heart while tear trickled down his face. A searing pain shot through his eyes, which he thought was a cue to the fact that his Mangekyo had been activated. He left the clan compound to run away soon after disposing his father's body. He chose not to visit his brother as he could not bring himself to do so. Meanwhile, Danzo had been very angry. Both Itachi and Shisui had not listened to him and Hiruzen Sarutobi had managed to send all the innocent Uchihas to safety too. At least, he would get Sharingan eyes for himself. Shisui had managed to evade him, so he had to do with normal Sharingans. Thinking so, he made his way towards the Uchiha clan compound. But when he saw what the two Uchihas had done to the bodies of those who were assassinated, he was beyond angry. He had lost his chance to get the Sharingans for himself. But, it seemed as if it was just the beginning of his plights, because just then, a team of 4 Shinobis Mido Gai, Kakashi Haddock, Asuma Sarutobi and Tenzo, also known as Yamato, just appeared out of nowhere and surrounded him. Kakashi stepped forward and said, "Shimura Danzo, you are to be executed for charges of treason. There is no means to escape for you." Danzo, not looking even the slightest bit intimidated, asked, "What happened to Fu and Torn?" Tenzo answered, "They are dead. Assassinated because they could prove to be quite a risk. Soon, you will join them in the afterlife." Danzo, for his part, just laughed and said, "Do you kids seriously think that you could kill me?" Asuma replied, "Don't underestimate us. Because, it could well be the end of you." Danzo suddenly did some hand seals and said, "Wind release." Vacuum wave. He took a deep breath and started spinning and compressing it and finally exhaling it as blades of winds in different directions. Danzo did a hand sign in response and said, "Wood release." Wood dome, as a wooden dome rose up to protect them from Danzo's jutsu. Kakashi then jumped out of the dome, did some hand seals and shouted, "Fire release." Grand fireball jutsu and shot out a giant fireball towards Danzo. Danzo knew that using wind-style jutsus against fire-style jutsu at such close proximity would only bring trouble. So, he backed down a bit. Guy and Asuma, taking advantage of this, jumped out of the dome and engaged him in a taijutsu fight. Danzo, noticing this, passed through several hand seals, said, "Wind release." Vacuum spheres. He took another deep breath and then exhaled several small blasts of wind chakra towards Guy and Asuma. Luckily, just in time, Kakashi shouted, "Earth release." Earth-style wall and created a wall of earth with faces of dogs to block Danzo's attack. Asuma, using the cover, charged his trench knives with wind chakra while Guy opened 5 of his 8 inner gates. Guy was the first to attack, giving no time for Danzo to perform any jutsu. He jumped up into the air, shouted Asakujaku, and started punching the air, which caught fire due to friction and speed of his punches. The fireballs hit Danzo, injuring him in the process. As soon as Danzo got a little away from the dangerous attack, he took out a kunai and exhaled wind-infused chakra to make it into a makeshift sword. Soon enough, Asuma attacked Danzo with his wind chakra-infused trench knives. They kept on trading blows for some time. Even Danzo had to admit that fighting against 4 Jonins was not easy. Especially if they were prodigies. They were not letting him to remove the seal on his right arm to use his wood release abilities. Close combat against 2 taijutsu experts was not easy either. All the while he was thinking about the fight, he failed to notice Kakashi charging up his lightning cutter, Tenzo making hand seal for his wood release. Danzo was taken by surprise when tendrils of wood latched onto him, binding him to the place. But, before he could recover, a lightning chakra-infused jab ran through his heart, killing him immediately. Danzo died there that night at the hands of 4 exceptionally skilled shinobis of the Leaf. After the 4 Jonins disposed of his body, they left to inform the Hokage that their mission was a success. The next day, news of the assassination of the leaders of the Uchiha clan spread like wildfire, and Itachi Uchiha was officially labeled as an S-rank missing ninja. Hokage's office, the next day. Sarutobi Hiruzen was waiting. It was rare for someone like him to wait for others, especially for children. The said boys were instrumental in plotting Danzo's death, yet they were irresponsible. Naruto and Shikamaru were summoned almost an hour ago, yet they had not arrived. This frustrated the third Hokage to no ends. Finally, after waiting for an hour and a half, the 2 boys arrived as if nothing had happened. Seeing them so laid back, the third Hokage's temper shot up and he started leaking a small amount of killer intent at the 2 time travelers, hoping to intimidate them. The 2 boys, even after sensing the killer intent, acted as if nothing had happened and sat on the chairs in front of the Hokage's table. The Hokage, realizing that his intimidation tactic against the boys had failed, sent the Anbus in the room out and sealed the room. He then said, "The coup has been foiled. Itachi has started on his long-term mission. Danzo is dead." Both Shikamaru and Naruto nodded and sighed in relief. They didn't doubt that whether their plan would succeed or not. Instead, it was the anticipation that had got the 2 boys riled up. The third Hokage asked, "What next, Shikamaru?" Naruto. Shikamaru, after thinking for a while, answered, "Nothing of importance happened from here on. The next major thing was the Chunin exams, which is about 3.5 years away. Anything from you, Naruto?" Naruto thought for a while and said, "Well, there's Mizuki's betrayal and wave mission. I can handle both of them." Shikamaru then turned towards the Hokage and said, "How is the memory seal search coming, Lord Third?" The Hokage answered, "We will surely find it in a month." Shikamaru then asked, "What about Root? There are many capable shinobis there." The third Hokage answered, "They will be put to rehabilitation and after about 3 years, will be inducted to normal shinobi service." Shikamaru nodded and said, "Then, all that is left is Academy." Naruto, visibly slumped at this. The third Hokage chuckled at Naruto's antics. Shikamaru, noticing the mood of Naruto, said, "Relax Naruto. This time, you will have friends by your side." Naruto looked towards Shikamaru and nodded. He then said, "Thanks Shikamaru. That means a lot to me." Shikamaru nodded, then turned towards the Hokage and said, "Is there anything else to discuss, Lord Third?" The third Hokage replied, "No, that is all. You may go now." The 2 boys got up, nodded at the Hokage and left the office as soon as he undid the seals. As soon as the boys left, the god of shinobi took out an orange-colored book from the drawer in his desk and started giggling perversely as he read it. With Naruto and Shikamaru. Both the boys had just exited the Hokage's office. Danzo was finally dead and he wouldn't be able to mess up anything ever again. Sai would not lose his emotions this time and Sasuke wouldn't be hell-bent on killing Danzo. Suddenly, both boys' thoughts raced at one person, Sasuke. They looked at each other, nodded and went to look for Sasuke together. It took them over an hour to find him. They had looked for him everywhere, even dragging Chaoji along with them on the way, until it hit them that they hadn't looked for him at one place, the pier where they had first met. They finally did find him at the place, sitting on the edge of the pier with a very depressed look and a couple of teardrops falling from his eyes. The 3 boys walked towards him when he noticed them and turned around rubbing the tears off his face. He tried his best to contain his emotions and put up a scowl on his face and finally said, "Go away. I don't want to talk to anyone." Naruto replied, "No Sasuke. Right now, you need someone to talk to and we are your friends. Talk to us, put it all out." Sasuke, maintaining his scowl, said angrily, "How could you know anything about what I have experienced? You never had anyone from the start." The pang of sadness tore through the blonde boy's heart as soon as Sasuke said that. Shikamaru clenched his hand into a fist and a visible look of anger came upon his face. Chaoji flinched at what Sasuke had said. Shikamaru walked forward towards the Uchiha and was about to hit him when Naruto placed his hand on his shoulder and stopped him. Naruto then said, "You are right Sasuke, I didn't have anyone from the start, but I know that as long as my parents were with me, they had showered so much love on me that it would fill my life twice over. It is also because I had no one that I can understand how important bonds are. So, trust me when I say that you need to let all of your emotions out. Come with me, let us talk somewhere else." With that, he led the 3 other boys towards the village. The Hokage monument on top of the 4th's head. The Uchiha and the Akamichi stood gaping in awe at the scenery that was in front of them as the 2 time travelers sat there, also soaking in the scenery. The view of the whole village, from the Hokage monument to the horizon, beyond the gates of Konoha, was visible from the place. Taoji was the first one to break the silence, he exclaimed, "Wow. Amazing." Sasuke just nodded in affirmation of the exclamation. Shikamaru just smiled at the two boys' awe. He himself had to admit that it was an awe-inspiring view. He used to sleep on the head of the Hokages or watch clouds from there in the previous timeline. He also knew that Naruto used to spend some time on the fourth's head and it increased after the Pain's attack and the subsequent meeting with his father. And this time around, he usually came here with Naruto to watch clouds after their training. Naruto, for his spot, smiled and said, "It is, isn't it? The first time I came here was with Jiji. Since then, I have been frequent visitor with Shikamaru." Both Sasuke and Choji raised an eyebrow at Naruto mentioning Jiji. As far as they knew, Naruto didn't have a family, let alone a grandfather. Shikamaru, of course, knew who this Jiji was. So, the two clueless boys asked at the same time, "Jiji?" Naruto gave a foxy grin and rubbed the back of his head as he said, "Yeah, old man Hokage was the first person who was actually nice to me, and we have a close bond." The two boys were surprised by this. Their friend was casually calling the Hokage, the god of shinobi, an old man, and it seemed as if the Hokage really didn't mind. But, above that, one thing stuck out. He had said that the Hokage was the first person who was nice to him. They had seen him getting harsh glares from the villagers but didn't know why. Sasuke then said, "Why are we here?" Shikamaru answered, "We know what you are thinking. But trust us, revenge isn't good for anyone." Sasuke's anger skyrocketed as he said, "Revenge isn't good. Itachi killed my father. He turned into a criminal. I looked up to him and he betrayed me. I will kill him for what he did to father. I hate him." Naruto replied to him this time, "Hatred breeds only more hatred, Sasuke. You will be pulled into an endless cycle of hatred and darkness. If you go down the path of an avenger, you will lose everything you hold dear to in your life including your mother." Sasuke's heart skipped a beat when the fact was mentioned. He clenched his fist and said, "Then what do you expect me to do? I hate him. How can I beat the hatred, huh? It's not as easy as you make it to be." Naruto said, "Think about it, why did he do it?" Sasuke looked confused and asked, "What do you mean?" Naruto answered, "Itachi graduated the academy at the age of 7, awakened his Sharingan at the age of 8, became Chunin at the age of 10, joined Anbu at 11, and became an Anbu captain at the age of 13. He then thinks he need another famous accomplishment and adds maniac killer of the Uchiha clan leaders. I don't think so." Little by little, realization dawned on Sasuke and he said as a little color came back to his face, "Then, he must have had another reason. Something no one knows about." Naruto and Shikamaru smiled and the lazy Nara said, "You get it finally." Sasuke nodded and said, "Then I will find him and know the truth. But, what if I become overpowered by hatred towards him when we meet?" Naruto answered, "Then take it all out on me, because I am the only one who can bear your hatred with you." Sasuke was touched by his words, but replied, "You can't. It is too much even for you. You don't know the hatred I have towards my brother. You didn't have any person to care about his family. You are always smiling. You don't know pain." Naruto sighed and looked towards Shikamaru, who nodded to him. He then looked back towards Sasuke and said, "Sasuke, you don't know what you are talking about. Do you know how it is to be kicked out of an orphanage on your birthday? Do you know how it is to live all alone? Do you know how it is to be kicked out of shop just because you wanted a mask? Do you know how hard it is to be glared with hatred wherever you go? Do you know how hard it is to be hated by the whole village for something that wasn't even your fault?" Sasuke and Choji both looked surprised and confused and asked, "What do you mean, Naruto?" Shikamaru asked them, "Have you noticed the glares he gets and the treatment he gets from the villagers?" Both boys nodded. Naruto then continued, "There is a reason behind it. What I am going to tell you is an S-rank secret which can be revealed only by me and the Hokage. Death is the punishment for breaking the rule. Got it?" As soon as both the boys nodded, he continued, "What do you guys know about the Kyuubi attack that happened 10 years ago?" Both the boys were surprised by this, and Choji answered, 10 years ago, the Kyuubi attacked the village and caused a lot of death and destruction. The fourth Hokage gave his life to kill it and save the village." Sasuke nodded at this. Shikamaru then said, "That is just a fabricated fairy tale to hide the actual truth of what really happened." The boys were surprised by this. So, Sasuke asked him, "What do you mean, Shikamaru? What is the actual truth?" Naruto answered this time, "Tailed beasts are nothing but chakra. They are huge masses of chakra. They can't be killed because, after some time, they would reform. The fourth Hokage knew this. So, instead of giving his life to kill it, he gave his life to seal it in something or rather, someone." Realization dawned on the two boys. The cold stares, the harsh whispers, the mistreatment, it all made sense for the boys now. They both said at the same time, "It was you, right?" Naruto nodded and said, "Whenever the villagers see me, they see the Kyuubi that attacked 10 years ago and not the blonde innocent kid. Jiji made the law to prevent the younger generation from knowing the secret so that I could have a normal childhood with friends, but the hate seeps through. Everybody's hatred is focused on me and I shoulder them." I don't blame them for hating me because they had lost something precious for them that night of the attack. But I will prove them that I am not the Kyuubi, but I am a proud citizen of Konoha. I will protect the village with my life and become the Hokage, just like the fourth. The two boys were moved by what Naruto had said. Sasuke was regretting about what he had said earlier and now wanted to make amends. So, he asked, how did you beat the hatred? Why do you still want to prove the village wrong? Why do you wish to protect them? They treated you badly. The fourth Hokage made your life a living hell by sealing the fox inside you. Then why do you still idolize him? Naruto smiled and answered, because Dad believed in me when he sealed the Kyuubi inside me. Naruto didn't notice his slip up until he saw that Choji and Sasuke had their mouth wide open in shock and surprise, and Shikamaru just face-palmed. Choji then asked, do you mean to say that you are the son of the fourth Hokage? Shikamaru was the one who spoke up next, isn't it obvious? Who else other than Yamanaka's had blonde hair? Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage. There are far too many similarities to miss the connection. It's a wonder the village can't see it. They must be the biggest fools in the world. Both were in awe of the fact that Naruto was the son of the hero of the Leaf Sun. But they had one question to ask, and Sasuke asked it, why? Why did your own father lay such a curse on you? Naruto with a smile, a genuine one, answered, because my father believed in me. So did my mother. They believed in me that one day I would be able to befriend the Kyuubi and work together with him to protect the leaf and defeat a certain person responsible for the Kyuubi incident of 10 years ago. Sorry, I can't tell you anything about the incident. Apart from that, my clan has always held the Kyuubi. This time, all three were confused and Shikamaru asked, what do you mean Naruto? You still haven't told us everything. Naruto answered with a shrug, must have had slipped my mind. Yeah, the first Hokage's wife was the first Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Her name was Uzumaki Mito and she is my ancestor. My mother, Kushina Uzumaki was the second and I am the third Jinchuriki. All three of them nodded and accepted the information. Shikamaru then spoke, Sasuke, we will leave the final decision to you. Make the right choice. Do you want a lonely path of an avenger and fail to protect your mother or choose the path filled with family and friends to find out what really happened that night? It is in the end up to you to decide. Think before you choose. Sasuke soaked in the words and sat with his mind deep in thoughts. Shikamaru had started watching clouds and Choji was eating the chips he had brought with him. Surprisingly, even Naruto was sitting silent for once. He was practicing the stillness required for sage mode. Minutes passed before Sasuke finally decided to get up and answer. Everyone turned their attention towards him and it was obvious from the look on their faces that a lot of decisions of theirs were based on his single most important decision. Sasuke took a deep breath before saying, I have finally decided. I won't be an avenger. I will walk beside my friends and with my friends. I will find my brother, bring him to justice and find out the truth about what actually happened. Choji smiled at this while Naruto and Shikamaru sighed before smiling. Naruto then held out his fist for a fist bump for everyone, if so, we will all help you achieve your goals Sasuke, Dadabeo. Each one of them nodded and bumped fist with a blonde inspirational Jinchuriki and all of them headed home. 3 months later. 3 months had passed since the Uchiha massacre and Sasuke's change of heart. Snowfall had begun and it was finally time for both Naruto and Shikamaru to join the academy. Naruto was really nervous at the prospect of seeing his friends once again. But Shikamaru had already warned him not to go running around proclaiming them to be his friends as they didn't know him yet. This brought down Naruto's mood a little, but he resolved to himself that he would overcome the obstacle like he did numerous times. Finally, he was making his way towards the academy to enroll his name. He was wearing a red scarf over his coat and also, he had bandaged his right hand up to the wrist. When he neared the academy, he heard a commotion. Naruto, wanting to find out what it was went there. What he saw there boiled his blood and he immediately ran towards the commotion. Byakugan monster, a fat boy teased Hinata as two others were laughing. Hinata was about to cry when suddenly, Naruto shouted as he ran towards them, hey, stay away from her. Or else, you will have to face me. The boys stopped for a while and as soon as Naruto arrived there, started laughing again. Seeing them laugh, Naruto asked angrily, why are you laughing? The fat boy said, you think you can take us on? Your hand itself is bandaged and you think you can beat us? One nobody is trying to save another and started laughing. It was then that the shy Hyuga noticed the bandaged hand of Naruto. Here was a boy whom she barely knew and he was standing up for her even though his hand was bandaged, she thought. She had heard people telling her to stay away from him. But now, she felt that they were all wrong and that the blonde boy was a nice boy and a cute one too. She blushed a little as she thought so. She didn't want the boy to get hurt and so was about to stop him when suddenly, a fight broke out between the boy and the bullies. But, it was over in an instant. Naruto, unable to tolerate the bullies insulting Hinata, delivered a right uppercut to the fat boy, sending him flying backwards and knocking him out in an instant. He then delivered a hook to the boy on the left, knocking him out too. Finally, the boy to the right was sent rolling back with a well-placed side kick to the chest. The fight was over in 3 seconds. The third boy, who hadn't been knocked out, woke up his companions, and all 3 of them scampered away. Hinata was surprised by the speed with which the blonde had beaten the bullies. She then noticed that the scarf that the boy was wearing was now laying on the ground, stepped on at some point during the fight, even though it took only 3 seconds. She sat down and picked it up. Naruto, noticing her pick up the scarf, also sat down. Hinata held the scarf to him so that he may take it. Naruto just shook his head and said, "Keep it. I don't need it. Think of it as a gift. Though, it would have had been nice if it was in a better condition." Hinata was surprised. Not many had treated her kindly or given her a gift or even stood up for her. She was really happy and said, thank you." Naruto smiled at her, got up and said, "Well, I will get going then. By the way, I am Naruto Uzumaki, and I will be the Hokage one day," Dadabayo, and ran towards the academy. Hinata sat there seeing the boy run towards the academy. After some time, a smile lit up her face as she held the scarf tighter in her hands. She also got up and started walking towards the academy to enroll her name. Hokage's office, that evening. Naruto and Shikamaru were waiting outside the Hokage's office and were waiting to enter. Naruto would have had rushed in, but Shikamaru just held him back for once. The reason was that the Hokage was in a meeting with the elders. After waiting for some minutes, which seemed like hours for the blonde boy, they were called inside after the elders left. The 2 boys entered the Hokage's office and took their seats. The Hokage then dismissed the Anbus in the room and sealed it. He then finally spoke, "Naruto, what is it that I hear? Is it true that you got into a fight?" Naruto just gave a foxy grin and answered while he rubbed the back of his head with his hand, "Well, the bullies were insulting Hinata. I couldn't control myself." The Hokage chuckled at this while Shikamaru grinned. The Hokage then said, "Well, someone sure is passionate about someone." Naruto blushed deep red at this. The Hokage continued, "Make sure that the feelings stay away from your judgment, Naruto. By the way, why is your right hand bandaged? Were you hurt somewhere?" The Hokage's voice took a more concerned tone as he asked his surrogate grandson. Naruto answered, "No Jiji, I am not hurt. The reason I bandage my hand is because the great old Jiji's powers are awakening." "Well, that is what Kurama says. Anyway, see it for yourself." The Hokage and Shikamaru understood that by great old Jiji, Naruto meant the Sage of 6 Paths. Naruto then proceeded to remove the bandages from his hand. When he removed all the bandages from his hand, the Hokage and Shikamaru noticed a sun-like marking on the palm of his hand. Shikamaru asked him, "What is that mark, Naruto?" Naruto answered, "According to the great old Jiji and Kurama, that mark is half of the sealing formula for sealing the Jubi Jinchuriki. The other half will be inherited by the bearer of the yin half of his chakra. It is for the same seal as the one that made the moon." Pride swelled up inside the third Hokage's heart as he came to know that his surrogate grandson held such power with him. Shikamaru also felt proud that his friend wielded such a strong power and yet was very modest and goofy. They both smiled at this. The third Hokage then asked, "So, you can access the powers of the Sage of 6 Paths now, Naruto?" Naruto shook his head and said, "No. According to Kurama, only a part of it is awakened. The rest will awaken gradually. He says that I might have access to the healing powers and some of the basic seals. That is all. I am not yet able to support all the powers that was given to me." The Hokage nodded and then said, "If that is all, Naruto, we can go and get you supplies for your academy now, shall we?" Naruto replied, "Yeah, that's all Jiji. Let's go." With that, the Hokage made a couple of shadow clones to work on the paperwork while he left with the 2 boys. A few days later. Shikamaru was anxious. So were Choji and Sasuke. It was the first day of the academy and Naruto had not arrived yet. They had all agreed to meet along with their parents and go to the academy together. At least, those who had one that is. But, even after the 3 boys had arrived at the academy and were waiting outside the academy, Naruto was still missing. They had started to think that thought of not having his parents had brought his spirits down enough to skip the academy that day. Finally, just as the academy teachers were about to address the parents who had arrived, Naruto walked inside the gates with the Hokage. The 3 boys let out a sigh of relief over the fact that Naruto had not skipped the class altogether. The Hokage, after leaving Naruto there, waved goodbye and left. The 4 boys grouped together immediately, much to the surprise of their parents. Shikamaru had arrived with his father Shikaku Nara and mother Yoshino Nara. Choji had arrived with his father Choza Akimichi and his mother. Sasuke had arrived with his mother Makoto Uchiha. All of these parents along with Inoichi Yamanaka and his wife grouped together as soon as the boys grouped together elsewhere. The topic of their discussion Naruto Uzumaki. Inoichi's wife was the first to question, is it good to allow your children to be with that boy? I mean, he is the, you know. Inoichi also voiced his opinion, yes, even I intended to ask the same question. Do you think you are doing the right thing? Taoji's mother was the first to answer, of course it is. He is in fact a very nice boy if you get to know him. Ishino added her bit too, yes he is. Poor boy, he doesn't have many friends though. So, let him have some friends to be with. Inoichi's wife asked once again, but he could be influenced by the thing inside of him. Sasuke's mother, Mikoto Uchiha, replied, no, I don't think so. He has strong will of fire. He is the boy who brought my son out of his path of self-destruction. I am grateful for that. Even the new clan head, Shisui has taken a liking to the boy. We are behind him from here on. Everyone were surprised by the fact that two important members of the Uchiha clan were supporting the village Jinchuriki. Danzo was the next to speak, my son does not have many friends. Because, most of them pick on him for his size. But, Naruto was one of the first to accept him and become friend with him. Choji has high regards for the boy and he has good influence over him, making him work harder on clan jutsus and taijutsu. I am thankful for the boy too. We of the Akimichi clan are behind him too. Shikaku spoke last, now that you mention it, Shikamaru has been friend with the boy for over 2 years now. They are as inseparable as Choji and he are. He has also put his laziness aside to train thanks to the boy. I have hardly seen my son speak of anyone with respect or praise, but he has only respect and praise for Naruto whenever we speak of him. It is as if he knows something about the boy that none of us knows. And it also looks like he has figured out Naruto's secret as well, by the way he speaks. Everyone were surprised by Shikaku saying that his son had put aside the legendary Nara laziness aside to train, and also by the fact that he respects the boy. So, Inoichi asked, what do you mean Shikaku? How can someone respect someone so young? Shikaku sighed and answered, that is a mystery even for me. But one thing is for certain, my son's growth in strength and skill is definitely due to Naruto's influence, and I owe him for that. And also, my son trusts him, so do I. We of the Nara clan are also behind him. After hearing all of this, Inoichi's wife spoke, well, that's for you. I will still advise my daughter to stay away from him just in case. We will know what happens soon enough. With that, the conversation between the parents ended. But the boys. Shikamaru asked, why were you late Naruto? Were you intending to skip the academy today? Naruto's mood fell a little, which everyone noticed. He answered, I don't have parents you know. All three boys flinched at that and Sasuke finally asked, then where were you? Naruto answered, I was at my parents' graves till Jichi came to bring me here. Well, at least I have some grandfather figure. Naruto's mood picked up as he said this. Taoji, wanting to brighten up the mood of his friend, said, hey guys, why don't you come over to our clan compound today? We will have a feast because I am entering the academy. Shikamaru's family has already been invited. Sasuke, why don't you bring your mom too? Naruto, you should also come too. We will have lots of ramen. Naruto's mood did a U-turn as soon as he heard the word ramen and said, ramen I will be there Choji, Dadabeo. Everyone laughed at Naruto's obsession over ramen and the mood around the group brightened up a lot. Taoji then said, has anyone else noticed that we have been training together a lot less? Sasuke nodded and said, yes, you are right. So, why don't we train together every day from here on? Shikamaru and Naruto had already thought about this during their daily training. They knew that someday, their two friends would ask them to be allowed to train with them. So, they had already formed a plan to overcome it. Naruto and Shikamaru would train alone at their private training ground in the morning, while they would train with the other two in one of the 3 clan compounds during the evening. So, Shikamaru answered, it is a good idea. We can train together in the evening while we can utilize the morning for our private training. We can train at our clan compounds alternatively. How about it? Both Sasuke and Choji nodded and replied at the same time, yes, that is a good idea. We will talk with our parents for permission to use the clan grounds for training. Shikamaru nodded and said, if so, then we can begin today. Let us begin with my clan's grounds, then tomorrow Choji's and then Sasuke's. After that, the cycle repeats. Everyone nodded as they made their way back to the academy. The academy, classroom. The newly enrolled students were already sitting in the classroom waiting for their instructor to enter. Many of them were from civilian families, while some were heir to the ninja clans. That included Shino Aburam of the Aburam clan, Kiba Inuzuka of the Inuzuka clan, Hinata Hyuga of the Hyuga clan, and finally Ino Yamanaka of the Yamanaka clan. The 4 boys made their way to the classroom, and as soon as Sasuke opened the door, everyone's gaze fell on them as one by one they entered. A loud squeal was heard from somewhere and suddenly, as soon as he heard that, Sasuke paled. Fangirls, all 4 of them thought, as Sasuke dashed to a seat at the end of a table and reserved the seat next to him and the ones in front of him for his friends. Then Choji entered and made way for the seat that Sasuke had reserved. After that Naruto entered and everyone's gaze fell on him. As soon as that happened, he froze at the spot. Shikamaru's hand on his shoulder brought him back to conscious world. With that, the two boys went to the seats and sat. Naruto and Sasuke sat next to each other, while Shikamaru and Choji did the same in front of them. Most of the class's eyes were on either Naruto or Sasuke. Though, for the latter, it was the fangirls. The rest of the class waited for the instructor while talking among themselves. After waiting for some time, a chunin with a scar running across his nose entered the classroom. Both Naruto and Shikamaru smiled at seeing their old academy instructor, Iruka-sensei, once again. The class, even after Iruka arrived, did not go silent. So, Iruka used the jutsu famous among the academy instructors, big-headed jutsu, and shouted, "Quiet down class." Everyone quietened as soon as they heard the frightful voice. Seeing that the class had finally quietened down, Iruka said, "Good, now, let me introduce myself. I am Iruka Yamino. I am a chunin of our village, Konohagakure, and I am going to be your academy instructor for the next 3 years. Now, why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Tell the class your name, your likes and dislikes and finally your goals and ambitions." With that, one by one, everyone introduced themselves. Finally, it came to Sasuke's turn. He got up and said, "I am Sasuke Uchiha of the Uchiha clan. I like my friends and training with them. I dislike traitors. My goal in life is to bring someone to justice and help my friends to achieve their goals." Most of the girls in the room squealed at this introduction. All of them thought that Sasuke was cool and that his goals were either admiring or mysterious. The four boys and Iruka sighed at this. Next was Choji's turn, who got up and said, "I am Choji Akimichi of the Akimichi clan. I like my friends, training with them and food. I dislike anyone who takes the last bite, those who call me fat and those who hurt my friends. My goal is to become a strong jonin, a strong clan leader, and to help my friends achieve their goal." Most of the students in the room chuckled at his introduction as he sat down. Next, Shikamaru got up and said, "I am Shikamaru Nara of the Nara clan. I like watching clouds, game of shogi and my friends. I dislike people who can't see beyond the first layer of anything, people who judge others without knowing them and people who kill others for fun. My goal is to become a strong ninja, succeed my father." As the clan head he gave a pause, grinned and continued, "and become the advisor of the Orange Hokage, I guess." None of the students were able to make heads or tails of his introduction, so they stayed silent, while Naruto also grinned at his introduction. Sasuke and Choji just smiled at their friend's introduction. Iruka looked surprised at the boy's maturity. Finally, Naruto stood up and said, "I am Naruto Uzumaki. I like Ichiraku's ramen, cup ramen, my friends, training, Jiji, pervy sage, Kurama." "I am touched," said Kurama sarcastically, "Konoha and the tales of a gutsy ninja and many other things. I dislike cold ramen, people who try to take over the world, people who hurt my friends and some other things. My goal is to make sure that every ninja can trust every other ninja, to break the cycle of hatred, and to become the greatest Hokage, Dadabeo." Again, none of them were able to make any sense of it and stayed silent, while Iruka was flabbergasted. The three boys smiled at his introduction. Iruka was now questioning himself. He had known about the condition of the boy and had also known that he was quite a prankster. He expected the boy to say something preposterous, but when he said things that were truly noble, he was questioning himself on his decision to ignore the boy. He thought that he would observe the boy more carefully before making his choice whether to ignore him like the other instructors had decided to do or not. Finally, after compassing himself, Iruka spoke up, "Okay, now that the introductions are over, let us begin with the classes." With that, the academy classes began. Later, that afternoon. Naruto stretched his arms as he said, "Wow, I had totally forgotten how boring academy was." Shikamaru nodded and said, "Yep, and couple it with us already knowing everything in it, well, at least me everything and you the practical ones, it is really a drag." Naruto replied, "It really is. I wish we could just skip the academy and become genins, but we can't. Also, we have to be dead lasts again. That is cruel, Dadabeo." Shikamaru chuckled and said, "Well, look on the bright side, we can sleep all we want without worrying. We are going to be dead lasts after all." Naruto nodded and said, "That is the only bright side though. Guess my pranking begins this week, Dadabeo." Shikamaru grinned and said, "And this time, I will be helping quite a while, even though it will be a drag." Naruto's eyes widened as he enthusiastically said, "Really, Shikamaru? You are the best, Dadabeo." Shikamaru smiled at his antics. He then noticed the other two boys coming towards them. He turned to Naruto and said, "Now, no talking of the future or the other timeline. They are back." Naruto nodded and sat down under a big tree with Shikamaru. Sasuke and Choji also arrived there and sat down next to them, and all four began to eat lunch they had got in bento boxes from their parents. Well, all except Naruto, who just opened a scroll and did a couple of hand seals to unseal its contents, which was unsurprisingly a kettle of hot water and cup ramen, which he began to eat. Shikamaru noticing that asked, "I thought you had begun to eat some healthy food once in a while." Naruto answered after slurping some of the ramen, "I didn't pack anything as I didn't expect to come here today, and before you give me some of yours, no, I am perfectly happy with my ramen for today. So, don't worry, Dadabeo." All three boys sighed at his ramen obsession and continued eating until Shikamaru asked, "Naruto, when we entered the classroom, you froze for some time. Why?" Naruto stiffened up a bit before asking, "You know that I can sense negative emotions, right?" Only Shikamaru nodded while both Choji and Sasuke looked surprised and asked, "Since when?" Naruto gave his foxy grin and scratched the back of his head with his hand as he said, "Guess I forgot to tell you, Dadabeo. Being the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi has its own advantages. I can sense negative emotions all around me and even hear them. If it is strong, I can hear and sense them from as far as 50 miles. Both Choji and Sasuke looked impressed, and they said at the same time, "That is awesome." Naruto grinned and continued, "Today, when I entered the room, I froze because I was surprised." All three boys looked surprised at this and asked, "Surprised?" Naruto nodded and continued, "Yes, I was surprised by the amount of negative emotions present in the room. Most of them were directed towards me. They were doubt on why I was to be avoided, fear as to why their parents had advised them to stay away from me and even some hate. Luckily, they were all from civilian families." Throughout Naruto's explanation, the three boys' anger had begun to rise. They were about to go and give all of those students a piece of their mind when Naruto continued without noticing their change of mood. Naruto, oblivious to the mood of the three boys continued, "These were not the ones I was actually surprised about. It was the ones from the clan heirs." At this, all three boys cooled down and listened intently as Shikamaru asked, "Negative feelings from them? What was it?" Naruto answered, "I will tell you exactly what I sensed and heard. From Shino, it was, will anyone become my friend after knowing about my clan's speciality? From Kiba, will I be able to meet mom's expectations? Can I really become the best? From Ino, am I good enough to be a kunoichi? Will I be able to be the best? From Hinata, am I strong enough? Will I be good enough to become a ninja?" Among others. All three boys nodded and Sasuke asked, "So, they doubt themselves, huh? Should we do something about this?" Shikamaru thought for a while, "At the moment, not much. We will see what happens and then move from there." All of them nodded and after finishing lunch, all of them headed back to the academy. It was going to be long 3 years. A year later. Naruto, Shikamaru, Choji and Sasuke had established themselves in the academy. Sasuke as the rookie of the year while Naruto, Shikamaru and Choji as the dead lasts. Sasuke knew that none of them were weak, yet they had become dead lasts. Choji, thanks to his clan's specialization, had the strongest punches and smashes. Shikamaru was already at low to mid-jonin level from what he had seen from the training regimes, and there was Naruto. Naruto was definitely the strongest among them. Sasuke had never been able to beat Naruto in a spar during their training time. He was easily, according to Sasuke, high jonin level. Yet, they had all become dead lasts. Shikamaru was way too lazy to get the marks to become the rookie of the year, while Choji had chosen to stay with his best friend. As for Naruto, it seemed as if he was deliberately holding back his massive skill and power. He had won every single spar he was paired against Naruto in the academy. At first, he had started to think that Naruto was losing concentration mid-fight or that he was catching up thanks to the training with the three boys and Shisui. But even though he had gone strong through the training, he had come to realize that it was neither. Instead, it had become absolutely clear that Naruto had been holding back a lot. He remembered the time he had confronted Naruto over the thing, and the answer he had got from him made him feel both surprised and happy. Surprised that Naruto had such insights and happy that he had a friend who was ready to lose the top title to be in the same team as he. Flashback. It was the third week in a row in which Sasuke had managed to beat Naruto in a spar at the academy. He had already started to doubt that Naruto had been holding back and he had confirmed it that day. He had intentionally let his guard down so that Naruto could exploit it. Any dead last could have had seen it and exploited it. But Naruto, even though had seen it, did not exploit it. This confirmed his doubts. So, at lunch, he had decided to confront Naruto over it and now, it was lunchtime. He had let the others go ahead and had stayed back. Finally, after some time, he left to meet the group of friends. The three boys were confused as to why Sasuke had asked them to go ahead. But they had let the thought slide thinking that he might have had something to do. But they didn't expect him to come towards them glaring. So, they all got up to ask him what the matter was. Sasuke, with an angry glare, came towards the group and went straight towards Naruto and punched him on the face, knocking him back. This took all three of them by surprise. Naruto, rubbing his face, got up and asked, "Ow, Sasuke, what was that for?" Sasuke answered angrily, why do you hold back in our spars? Naruto, confused, asked, what do you mean Sasuke? I don't hold back. Sasuke continued angrily, don't lie to me. You are always holding back against me. I let my guard down deliberately to confirm my doubts, and your actions confirmed it. Now, answer me, why do you hold back? Throughout this conversation, Shikamaru had chosen to be silent, letting the two solve their differences themselves. He had also stopped Choji from intervening. Naruto just smiled and answered, you really do want the real reason, don't you Sasuke? Sasuke nodded his head and said, yes I do. Now, don't lie to me. Naruto smiled and said, do you know how genin teams are formed? Let me tell you the most common ones. Now, Shikamaru and Choji will be in the same team with Ino because it's the Ino-Shikacho combination that has been there for generations. Next, there will be a tracker team, to which neither of us will be selected. So, the last traditional team will be the one in which the dead last will be put in the same team as the prodigy of the year. Since you are the prodigy, I have to be the dead last to be in the same team as you. This answer completely surprised and shocked Sasuke. It had completely humbled him. Here was a true friend who was ready to give up on his grades so that they could be on the same team. He smiled and said, thank you Naruto. Naruto just gave his foxy grin and rubbed the back of his head. Both Shikamaru and Choji smiled at this. Shikamaru then spoke up, well, there is one other reason too. Sasuke, not understanding, asked, one other reason. What's that? Shikamaru answered, if he didn't hold back, we would all be dead by now. At this, all of them started laughing. So, Sasuke had accepted the fact that Naruto was dead last and had made sure to become prodigy of the year so that they could be on the same time. For the rest of the class, it seemed as if Naruto was a nuisance trying to show off by fighting Sasuke and failing at it. Even though it infuriated Sasuke, he kept his emotions a check remembering his talk with Naruto. Naruto and Iruka had gotten close once again, rekindling their brother-like relation. Iruka had started to look at Naruto as a younger brother who happened to have no family, just like him. At the moment, they were having lunch at their usual spot at the academy. Shikamaru was the first to speak, Naruto, don't you think it's about time we start to change the thoughts of our classmates? Naruto nodded and said, yeah, I know. If we don't start now, it will become a big problem later on. You have to hear their emotions. It's been getting worse and worse. The three of the boys nodded and Shikamaru asked, so, whom do we start with? Naruto answered, Shino. He has the worst emotions as he hardly has any friends thanks to his clan techniques. The three boys nodded and Shikamaru said, well, it's Shino then to start with. But Shino? Shino was standing all alone under a tree. Not many talked to him and he had no friends either. It was mostly because of his clan's specialty. His clan, the Aburam clan, specialized in bugs. But, bugs were not the most popular things around and so, it creeped everyone out seeing bugs around him. So, he did not have any friends. This fact made him doubt himself whether he would ever be able to make any friends. Both his father, Shibi Aburam and his closest friend and both his brother figure, Torin Aburam, had told him that making friends for his clan members was hard, but if he ever made friendship with someone, he would have to protect it and cherish it. Now, he was wondering whether he would ever be able to have good friendship with anyone, let alone cherish it. At that moment, he felt a hand on his shoulder, which startled him. But, maintaining his cool, he turned around to see who it was. There, standing were the three dead lasts and the prodigy of the year, with the blonde dead last's hand resting on his shoulder. And, he was giving him a smile. This confused Shino because no one usually came near him, let alone hold his shoulder. He asked monotonously, Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akimichi, how can I help you? Naruto smiled and answered, you don't have to be so stiff Shino. Neither do you have to doubt yourself. Shino was confused by this. So, he asked, what do you mean Naruto? Naruto, still smiling, answered, you don't have to doubt yourself on whether you would be able to be friend with anyone just because you are from the Aburam clan. After all, the Aburam clan is a respected clan in Konoha. Shino, understanding, replied, you know about my clan. Then you must know about us. Naruto nodded and continued, even though the bugs creep me, I still find it awesome that you can control them and talk to them. You don't need to worry about not having friends anymore Shino. After all, we are all friends, Dadabeo. With that, the four boys left. Shino watched them go away as he thought, guess what the people say about Naruto is wrong. He is a nice person after all. I wonder why most people hate him. His doubts were slowly going away as he knew that he had found friends, his first friends. Maybe, all was not lost. Now all he had to do was to protect it and cherish it. Throughout all this, he never understood why his Kakachu were making so much fuss over a huge amount of chakra presence. After all, how could academy students have massive chakra? He thought. 5 months later. It had been 5 months since the talk with Shino. He had become rather good friends with the four boys, even as far as joining the group. Neither Naruto nor the others had any qualms about it. He had even joined their group trainings and had seen the actual strength and skills of Shikamaru and Naruto, which had totally surprised him. Yet, he was unable to figure out the mystery of the massive chakra presence. As for Naruto and Shikamaru, their pace of progress had slowed down, but had not stopped. Shikamaru, after completing the nature transformation exercises, had begun to work on his clan jutsus and elemental jutsus. Naruto had started to work on mastering the different modes of his Kyuubi chakra cloak. Shibi Aburam, Shino's father, had not been vocally supporting towards his sons and Naruto's friendship. But neither was he against it. In fact, he had advised Shino to not to listen to others and to follow his own thoughts instead. He had also told him that if the friendship was worth it, he should preserve it. But, after seeing Naruto and his group of friends and also Shino's growth as a potential shinobi, had changed his mind and also of his clan, making them yet another supporters of Naruto. Slowly but steadily, the base of hatred towards Naruto had started to die away. The group were at the academy at the moment. Shikamaru and Naruto had opted to sleep through the class. Choji was eating his pack of barbecue-flavored chips, while Sasuke and Shino were paying attention to what Iruka-sensei, as usual. Iruka, having had tried in futile to motivate Naruto and Shikamaru to listen to his lecture, had just ignored the two sleeping dead lasts. Luckily, lunchtime came as a respite for all of them. The group of 5 boys sat under a rather large tree which they had made their usual spot. Shikamaru spoke up, "Who's next?" The others, except Shino, understood what he meant and Naruto answered, "Kiba, I guess. Got a lot of confidence problems." The 3 boys nodded and Shino asked, "What do you mean?" Sasuke answered him, "We are trying to get our friends to lose their negative emotions or something like that." Shikamaru and Naruto sweat dropped at Sasuke's effort at cracking a joke. Choji chose to answer Shino's question, "We are trying to do what we did to you. Erase everyone's doubts about themselves so that we could all be friends." Shino nodded as he understood Choji's answer better than Sasuke's. So, the group of 5 boys made their way towards the Inuzuka clan heir. With Kiba. Kiba had doubts over whether he could live up to his mom's expectations. So, he had beaten almost everyone in his class in the academy spars. The only people he had lost to were Shino and Sasuke, while he had not yet fought against Shikamaru, Naruto or Choji. The fact that he had lost to Sasuke and Shino infuriated him. Also, he had got into trouble because of his low grades in tests, putting him with the dead lasts of his class. When he saw that Shino and Sasuke were coming towards him, along with the other 3 dead lasts, he was infuriated. To hide it, he put upon the mask of making fun at the group. "So, you have come to accept that I am much better than all of you, have you? Is it because you want me in your group? It must be true because I am awesome after all. Maybe the Uchiha is not up to his mark in the group, I suppose. So, you needed a better leader to lead your pathetic group, is it? Is that why you came to me?" he asked the 5 boys. At this, Sasuke's blood boiled and was about to retort when both Shikamaru and Naruto started laughing. Soon, Choji also joined them with laughing and Shino was soundlessly chuckling. This completely infuriated Kiba. So, he spoke up, "You come to me for help and now you laugh at me? What, you want to fight, huh? Well then, get ready to fight." With that, all of them stopped laughing and Naruto replied, "Kiba, we came here neither to ask for your help nor to laugh at you." Kiba, not accepting the answer, asked, "Then why did you come to me?" Shikamaru answered, "To clear your doubts about yourself." Kiba got confused by this answer. So, he asked, "What do you mean by clearing my doubts? I have no doubts." Naruto shook his head and answered, "Kiba, it is no good to hide your doubts from us. We are your friends, after all. We know about your predicament whether you will be able to live up to your mother's expectations. You should not hide your problems and doubts from friends." Kiba's face fell at this as he said, "So what? You can't do anything about it." Shikamaru answered, "Who said so? We didn't. Look Kiba, never try to hide anything that troubles you from friends because they are the ones who can actually help you." Naruto spoke next, "Yes Kiba. Your mother may have high expectations for you, but that doesn't mean that you have to beat everyone around to live up to that. Instead, you should become someone who is strong and good enough to lead one of the most important clans of Konoha. For that, you need friends along the way. But what you have doing is hiding behind a mask of arrogance and haughtiness. That just pushes friends away from you. Remember, you need friends to get better and stronger. That's why we are here, Kiba." Kiba thought about it for a while and then a smile lit up his face as he said, "Guess you are right. Maybe I will listen to what you say. Then, I will not only become a clan leader but also the Hokage. I will leave you all in dust guys. I will be the best among us friends." With that, he started running with his pet dog Akamaru on his head. He knew that now on, he didn't have to doubt himself. He would become strong. He would become strong with his friends. Naruto and group smiled at their new friend's antics and they started walking towards their class for yet another one of Iruka-sensei's boring lecture. 6 months later. Hiba had become an unofficial member of the group. At times, he hung out with them and at times, he didn't. He now didn't hate either Sasuke or Shino. Instead, there was a rivalry going on between them, though a one-sided rivalry only. He was still not able to beat them. So, he still mocked them, though less frequently. He had taken up a new habit of proclaiming that he would become Hokage and that he had a better chance at that than Naruto, as rivalry with him. With the group, Naruto's pranks had gotten pretty large-scale and famous yet irritating. Even Shikamaru helped him many times. The rest of the group didn't because they didn't want to invite trouble. But they enjoyed his pranks wholeheartedly. Even Anbus were not spared from his pranks. The Anbus had to work in Bright Orange for a whole day because of one of his pranks. There was also a rumor that the Anbu headquarters had been inaccessible for a whole week because of his prank. The Hokage monument was defaced almost every other week. Even the clan compounds were not safe from him. Surprisingly, every time he and Shikamaru were caught, they were let free with a mild warning and a hearty chuckle from the Hokage. And every time they were caught, it was by the same person Iruka. Somehow, he used to find them no matter what even when the Anbus failed. At the moment, once again, they were in another one of Iruka-sensei's boring class, sleeping while the other boys paid attention. As soon as lunchtime arrived, as if a miracle had struck, the two boys got up and sprinted out of the classroom rising up a dust cloud. Everyone, including Iruka-sensei, sweat dropped at this. Soon, the three other boys joined the two at their usual spot. Shino spoke first, surprising everyone in the process, so, who is next? Naruto smirked and answered, all those who are left are girls. At this, all the boys turned toward Sasuke who audibly gulped and asked, why are you looking at me like that? Shikamaru answered with a grin, well, two of them are your fangirls, and you have a crush on one of them. Sasuke blushed a bit and asked, since when is she on the list? Naruto answered with his foxy grin and hands behind his head, well, since you seem to have a crush on her, we thought we would add her to the list too. Sasuke blushed a bit more and replied, what about Hinata? You seem to have a massive crush on her. And she seems to have a crush on you too. This time it was Naruto's turn to blush as he stuttered, Oya, don't say anything about me, it's just. The other three boys started laughing at this. Seeing them laugh, even Sasuke joined them with his laugh. This completely got on the nerves of Naruto. So, he said to Shikamaru, don't laugh at me Shikamaru. Because, we will see when we meet Temari. Shikamaru blushed a bit but suddenly stopped laughing. Realizing his slip-up, even Naruto stopped talking and bit his tongue. Sasuke, Shino and Chaoji's ears perked up at hearing this new name. So, Chaoji asked, as he grinned, so, Shikamaru, who is this Temari? Shikamaru scrambled for a believable reply and answered, well, you see it doesn't matter. Let's get back to work, shall we? So, who is next? Seeing that Chaoji was not about to give up, Naruto replied, it's up to Sasuke to decide. I would rather leave Hinata for the last. Sasuke hurriedly said, why should I decide? I am not going to do anything. Shikamaru sighed and said, this girly business is leading us nowhere. None of us, who have to do what we have to do, are ready. So, we better leave it out for now and focus on the last year of our academy for now. I suppose that their emotions might have had gone up by now, Naruto. Naruto answered, yeah, I suppose so. There isn't as much as it was then. He left out the negative emotions part out deliberately since Shino still didn't know about Naruto housing the Kyuubi. Chaoji and Sasuke understood this and nodded. Shino nodded and spoke, even I agree with Shikamaru. This is the last year of the Shinobi Academy for us. So, we would better focus on it so that all of us might pass. With all of us, he had meant Shikamaru and Naruto since they had the lowest grade among them all. At this, Naruto whispered to Shikamaru as all of them made their way back to the class, well, not all of us are passing. Shikamaru whispered back, right, we still have to deal with Mizuki. You won't be alone this time. I will be with you, just in case. To make sure that you leave him alive. Naruto grinned as he whispered, that's good to hear. Shikamaru then punched him in the gut as he whispered, that is for the slip-up. Naruto held his gut as he apologized, I am sorry.